The grocery store had been having a sale on cabbage. Saitama remembered that clearly. 3 heads for the price of 2, a deal too good to pass up even if cabbage wasn't his favorite vegetable. He'd been reaching for the 3rd head, mentally calculating whether he had enough space in his refrigerator when the world simply stopped making sense. One moment, fluorescent lights, the squeak of shopping cart wheels, the ambient hum of a normal Saturday afternoon. The next, heat. Intense, dry heat pressing against his bald head like an oven door left open, sand crunching under his boots. Twin suns blazing overhead in a sky that definitely shouldn't have 2 suns. Saitama looked down at his hand, still holding the bag of cabbages. At least he'd gotten his groceries before whatever this was happened. Huh, he said to no one in particular, his expression as blank as always. This is new. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by rocky outcroppings and the occasional bleached skeleton of something large and mechanical, half buried in dunes. The wind carried sand that should have stung his eyes but didn't. Nothing really bothered him physically anymore. He'd long since broken past those limitations. Saitama started walking. No particular direction, just forward. In his experience, walking eventually led to civilization, or at least someone who could explain what was happening. The sand shifted under his red boots with each step, and he absently noted that this place felt wrong in ways he couldn't quite articulate. The air tasted different. The gravity felt fractionally lighter. Even the sunlight seemed to carry a different quality, as if the fundamental rules governing reality had shifted slightly. A distant rumble made him pause. Saitama turned, shielding his eyes against the twin suns' glare, and spotted shapes moving across the desert. Vehicles of some kind, large angular things that hovered above the sand on repulsor fields, kicking up dust trails behind them. They were heading directly toward him. Maybe they know where the grocery store is, Saitama muttered, waiting patiently as the vehicles approached. What arrived was decidedly not a grocery store delivery service. The vessels, 3 of them, painted in stark white and gray with an unfamiliar symbol emblazoned on their hulls, formed a semicircle around him. Hatches hissed open and armored figures emerged, their white plastoid armor gleaming in the double sunlight. They carried weapons that looked nothing like any gun Saitama had seen, all smooth lines and glowing power cells. "Halt!" one of them barked, voice filtered through a helmet speaker. "Identify yourself. This is a restricted Imperial sector." Saitama blinked. Imperial? Like an empire? He scratched his head. "Listen, I'm just looking for directions. Do you guys know where the nearest city is? I need to find a way home." The stormtroopers exchanged glances, their body language suggesting confusion even through the armor. Their leader stepped forward, rifle trained on Saitama's chest. "You will come with us for questioning. Place your hands on your head and kneel." "That seems excessive," Saitama said mildly. "I'm just lost." "This is your final warning. Comply or we will open fire." Saitama sighed, the kind of long-suffering exhale of someone who'd been through too many ridiculous situations to feel surprised anymore. "Look, I really don't want any trouble. I just want to find a grocery store, buy some more vegetables since these are probably wilting in this heat, and figure out how I got here." The stormtrooper's finger tightened on the trigger. Red bolts of energy, blaster fire, though Saitama didn't know the term, lanced through the air. They struck his chest, his arms, his face. The desert lit up with crimson flashes as all 3 squads opened fire simultaneously, pouring enough firepower to melt through Durasteel into the strange, bald man standing calmly in their crosshairs. Saitama stood there, unmoving, as the barrage continued. The energy bolts splashed against his hero costume's yellow shirt and red cape like water hitting stone. His expression never changed from its default look of mild disinterest. After several seconds of sustained fire, The weapons began overheating, their power cells depleted. Silence fell across the desert, broken only by the wind and the cooling clicks of overtaxed blasters. "Are you done?" Saitama asked. He glanced down at his costume, checking for damage out of habit more than concern. Not even a scorch mark. These energy weapons are pretty flashy, but they don't really do much, do they? The stormtroopers stood frozen, their training providing no protocol for targets that simply ignored blaster fire. Their leader's hand trembled as he reached for his comlink. "Command, this is Desert Patrol 7. We have encountered an unknown hostile. Subject is impervious to blaster fire, requesting immediate backup and..." Saitama wasn't trying to intimidate them. He simply walked forward because standing still in the sun was getting boring. But his casual step covered the distance between them faster than seemed possible for someone moving at what looked like a leisurely pace. The stormtroopers scrambled backward, one of them firing a desperate shot that Saitama didn't even notice. "Wait, hold on," Saitama said, stopping abruptly. "I'm not hostile. I'm just confused. Where am I? What planet is this?" "Tatooine," the squad leader stammered. "You're on Tatooine, in the Outer Rim territories, under Imperial jurisdiction." Tatooine. Saitama repeated the word, trying to place it. Didn't ring any bells. "Never heard of it. Is that near City Z? Or City A? Actually, what country is this?" "Country?" The stormtrooper's voice carried utter bewilderment. This is the Galactic Empire. The entire galaxy. What do you mean, country?" Saitama's eyes widened slightly, the most expression he'd shown since arriving. "Galaxy? As in space? Multiple planets?" He looked up at the twin suns, then back at the stormtroopers. Oh, that's why everything looks weird. I'm on an alien planet." He paused, processing this revelation with the same emotional energy most people reserved for discovering they'd taken a wrong turn. "Huh. That explains the two suns, and the sand, and why you guys look like you're from some sci-fi movie." The stormtroopers continued backing away, their leader still frantically speaking into his comlink. Immediate response required. Unknown entity demonstrating impossible durability. Possibly force-sensitive, but readings are negative. Recommend deployment of... If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Saitama adjusted his grip on his grocery bag, the cabbages somehow still intact despite everything. Overhead, the twin suns beat down on a desert world that had just encountered something its residents had no framework to understand. A hero whose power came not from the Force, not from technology, not from any energy source the galaxy recognized, but from something far simpler and far more terrifying: the complete absence of limits. The Imperial response arrived within the hour, and it arrived in force. Saitama had found a relatively flat rock to sit on while he waited, munching on a cabbage leaf he'd pulled from the bag. Not his first choice for a snack, but the heat was making him thirsty and the vegetable was at least somewhat hydrating. The ground trembled before he saw them, massive four-legged walkers cresting the dunes, their imposing silhouettes blotting out portions of the twin suns. 8-8 walkers, though Saitama didn't know the designation. To him, they just looked like really tall mechanical dogs with guns. Behind them came troop transports, speeder bikes, and even a low-flying TIE fighter squadron screaming overhead, their distinctive ion engines shrieking through the desert air. "Wow," Saitama said around a mouthful of cabbage. "That's a lot of robots." The vehicles formed a perimeter around his position, weapons systems humming to life. Hundreds of stormtroopers deployed in practiced formations, taking cover behind whatever terrain features existed. The AT-AT's massive cannons swiveled, targeting systems locking onto the sitting figure, who seemed remarkably unconcerned about being surrounded by enough firepower to level a small city. An amplified voice boomed across the desert. "Unknown entity, you are hereby ordered to surrender yourself to Imperial custody. Resistance will be met with lethal force." Saitama stood up, dusting sand off his yellow pants. "I already told your other guys, I'm not resisting anything. I'm just lost." He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted back, "Do any of you know how to get to Earth? Or have a phone I could borrow?" The response was a warning shot from an AT-AT's chin-mounted blaster cannons. The energy bolt carved a molten trench in the sand 20 meters to Saitama's left, superheating the silica into glass. The message was clear: comply or die. Saitama looked at the glowing trench, then at the massive walker that had fired it. "That seems really dangerous," he observed. "You could hurt someone with that thing." Another voice crackled across the comm systems, this one colder, more controlled. "Subject demonstrates either extreme confidence or extreme stupidity. All units, open fire. I want that thing subdued and contained." The desert erupted into chaos. Blaster fire from hundreds of weapons converged on Saitama's position simultaneously. 8 AT cannons fired in sequence, their heavy bolts capable of punching through reinforced bunkers. The TIE fighters screamed past overhead, strafing runs sending laser fire raking across the sand. Concussion missiles from the troop transports added their explosive fury to the barrage. Saitama stood in the center of it all, arms hanging loosely at his sides, as the Empire demonstrated exactly why it controlled the galaxy. Energy splashed against his body in waves of crimson and green. Explosions bloomed around him, kicking up sand and superheated glass. The ground beneath his feet turned to molten slag from the sustained bombardment. He waited for it to end, occasionally blinking sand out of his eyes. The barrage lasted 43 seconds before ammunition warnings started appearing on Imperial tactical displays. The commander, watching from a command speeder positioned on a distant dune, felt his confidence evaporating as his scopes showed the target standing exactly where he'd been, completely unharmed. "Cease fire," the commander ordered, his voice tight. "Cease fire. All units, hold position." The weapons fell silent. Smoke and superheated air shimmered across the desert, obscuring visibility for a moment before the wind cleared it away. Saitama stood in a crater of glass, his hero costume pristine despite the apocalyptic firepower that had just been unleashed on his position. He was checking his grocery bag with a slightly disappointed expression. "Aw, man," Saitama said, pulling out a charred cabbage. "This one got cooked. That's wasteful." He looked up at the nearest AT-AT, his face showing genuine annoyance for the first time. "You guys ruined my groceries." The Imperial commander's hands shook as he raised his macro binoculars. This was impossible. Nothing survived that kind of concentrated fire. Not battle droids, not Wookiees, not even the rumored Force users that High Command warned about. Yet there stood this bald, cape-wearing lunatic complaining about vegetables. "Command, this is Ground Unit Theta," the commander spoke into his secure channel. "We have a situation that requires immediate High Command attention, possibly inquisitorious involvement." Static crackled, then a new voice, smooth, cultured, and carrying an edge that made even hardened soldiers nervous. "This is Commander Thrawn, observing your tactical feed. Fascinating. The entity shows no energy signature, no force presence, yet demonstrates invulnerability beyond anything in our databases. Hold your position. Lord Vader is being notified." The name sent a ripple through the Imperial ranks. Vader, the Emperor's enforcer, the Dark Lord himself. Saitama, oblivious to the fear that name generated, was now walking toward the nearest AT-AT. Not aggressively, he just seemed curious. The massive walker loomed over him, its shadow falling across the crater, and Saitama tilted his head back to examine it. "These things are pretty big," he commented. "What are they for? Construction. They seem too slow for racing." The AT-AT pilot, watching through his viewport as the strange man approached, did what every nervous pilot does when uncertain. He adjusted his position. The walker shifted its weight, one massive foot lifting to take a step backward, away from the approaching figure. Saitama, wanting a better look at the mechanical leg joint, leaned against the walker's left leg just as it began to move. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The AT-AT, designed to withstand anti-vehicle weapons and carry metric tons of armor and troops, found itself suddenly pushing against an immovable object. Durasteel groaned, structural supports buckled. The entire walker tipped sideways as its gyroscopic stabilizers failed to compensate for the impossible resistance against its leg. "Whoa!" Saitama stepped back quickly as the walker toppled, trying not to damage it further. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." The AT-AT crashed into the sand with a thunderous impact that shook the ground for kilometers. Its reactor whined in protest, systems shorting out in cascades of sparks. The crew scrambled to evacuate before the entire vehicle exploded. Saitama watched with genuine concern as stormtroopers tumbled out of emergency hatches. "Is everyone okay?" he called out. "I just wanted to look at it." The Imperial commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The AT-AT hadn't been attacked. It hadn't been hit with weapons or force powers. It had simply encountered someone leaning against it and ceased to function. The structural damage reports scrolling across his screen indicated that the leg's entire support frame had crumpled, as if pushed by something with the mass of a small moon. "All units, fall back," the commander ordered, his voice hollow. "Establish a 2-kilometer perimeter. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." Saitama scratched his head as the Imperial forces retreated. Their weapons still trained on him, but no longer firing. "I really didn't mean to break that," he said to no one in particular. "It just looked interesting." He sat back down on his rock, pulling out one of the non-burnt cabbages and taking another bite. In the distance, the Imperial forces regrouped, their communications channels buzzing with panicked reports and requests for guidance. Somewhere in the command chain, the message was being relayed to higher and higher authorities, until it would inevitably reach someone who could make sense of the impossible. High above Tatooine, in the cold void of space, a Star Destroyer's hyperdrive engaged. The ship carrying Darth Vader emerged from hyperspace in the system, drawn by reports of something that even the Empire's limitless firepower couldn't stop. The Dark Lord stood on the bridge, his respirator breathing steadily as he contemplated the tactical feeds being transmitted from the planet's surface. A man who walked through blaster fire, who destroyed an AT-AT by leaning on it, who showed no fear, no anger, no emotion at all in the Force because he wasn't connected to it. He was simply there, impossibly strong, inexplicably durable. Vader's gloved hand clenched. "Prepare my shuttle," he commanded. "I will investigate this anomaly personally." The shuttle descended through Tatooine's atmosphere like a black dagger cutting through the afternoon heat. Imperial forces on the ground watched its approach with a mixture of relief and trepidation. Relief that someone higher up the chain was taking responsibility for this impossible situation. Trepidation because that someone was Lord Vader, and his presence rarely ended well for anyone involved. Saitama had finished his second cabbage by the time the shuttle landed. He'd been sitting patiently for over an hour now, watching the Imperial forces maintain their perimeter while clearly having no idea what to do with him. A few had tried approaching to talk, but their commanders always called them back. It reminded him of the awkward standoffs he sometimes had with monsters back home, that moment where both sides were trying to figure out if fighting was really necessary. The shuttle's boarding ramp lowered with a pneumatic hiss. What emerged made even the veteran stormtroopers straighten unconsciously to attention. Darth Vader stood over 2 meters tall, his black armor absorbing the twin suns' light rather than reflecting it. The dark cape flowed behind him as he walked, untouched by the desert wind that whipped sand against everyone else. His breathing, that mechanical, rhythmic sound, carried across the crater with unnerving clarity. Behind his mask, sensors and optical systems analyzed every detail of the strange being sitting on a rock ahead. Saitama looked up, chewing thoughtfully. His expression didn't change at Vader's appearance. No fear, no shock, just mild curiosity. "Oh, hey, are you in charge? I've been trying to explain to everyone that I'm just lost and need directions." Vader stopped 10 meters away. The Force swirled around him, dark and potent, pressing against reality itself with the weight of his power. He extended that presence towards Saitama, probing for any hint of Force sensitivity, any weakness, any thread he could grasp to understand what stood before him. Nothing. Not an absence that would imply something was blocking his senses. This was worse. It was as if Saitama existed in a space where the Force simply didn't apply, like trying to grasp smoke or shadow. The man wasn't concealing his presence. He genuinely had no presence to conceal. "You are not from this galaxy," Vader stated. His voice filtered through his mask's vocoder into something deep and mechanical. Not a question, an observation. "Yeah, I figured that out when I saw the 2 suns," Saitama replied, standing up and brushing sand off his pants. "I'm from Earth, City Z specifically. Do you know where that is?" "No." Vader's respirator breathed in, out. "You will explain how you arrived on Tatooine. The technology or power you used to resist Imperial weapons. Your purpose here." "I don't really know how I got here," Saitama admitted, scratching his bald head. "One second I was grocery shopping, the next I was standing in this desert. As for the weapons thing," he shrugged, "I'm pretty durable, always have been. It's kind of my thing." Vader's hand moved to the lightsaber at his belt, fingers closing around the hilt. "You destroyed an AT-AT walker by touching it. You survived sustained fire from an entire battalion. Durable does not explain this." "I trained really hard," Saitama said simply. "Push-ups, sit-ups, running, regular exercise, healthy diet, no air conditioning. After a while I got strong, really strong." He paused, like, "I can beat anyone with one punch strong." The explanation was so absurd, so divorced from the Force-based or technology-based power paradigms Vader understood, that he actually hesitated. In his decades of hunting Jedi, studying the dark side, and mastering the Force, he'd encountered many forms of power, but never someone who claimed they'd achieved invincibility through what amounted to a basic workout routine. "Impossible," Vader said flatly. "No amount of physical training grants such abilities. You conceal your true nature." "I'm really not," Saitama replied with the patience of someone who'd had this conversation many times. "Look, I know it sounds weird, but that's what happened. I trained so hard I broke my limiter. Now I'm way too strong and nothing challenges me anymore." His voice carried a hint of melancholy. "It's actually kind of boring." Vader's lightsaber ignited with that distinctive snap hiss. The crimson blade hummed to life, casting red highlights across the sand. "We shall see if you're truly invincible." Saitama looked at the energy blade with interest. "Oh, that's cool. Is that a laser sword? How does it not burn your hand off where you're holding it?" Instead of answering, Vader moved. The Force enhanced his speed. turning his attack into a blur of motion as he closed the distance and swung the lightsaber in a killing arc meant to sever Saitama's head from his shoulders. The blade passed through the space where Saitama had been standing, except he'd moved not away, but slightly to the side, almost casually. "Whoa, careful," Saitama said. "That thing looks dangerous." Vader spun, bringing the lightsaber around in a horizontal slash. Saitama leaned back, the blade passing centimeters from his face. Another strike, vertical this time. Saitama stepped aside, a thrust aimed at his chest. Saitama shifted his weight and the blade passed through empty air. The Dark Lord attacked with the precision and fury of a Sith master, each strike calculated to exploit openings, to force his opponent into positions where defense became impossible. The lightsaber traced patterns of destruction through the air, its blade capable of cutting through blast doors and armor. Yet every attack found nothing but desert air. Saitama wasn't fighting back, he was simply avoiding, like someone stepping around puddles on a sidewalk. His expression remained bored, almost disappointed. "Are you going to keep swinging that thing?" Saitama asked after 30 seconds of Vader's assault. "Because I'm not really interested in fighting. I just want to find a way home." Vader stopped, breathing heavily, or as heavily as his respirator allowed. Sweat formed inside his suit, the exertion pushing even his enhanced body to its limits. The stranger hadn't even broken a sweat, hadn't assumed a fighting stance, hadn't done anything except casually dodge attacks that would have killed Jedi Masters. "You are toying with me," Vader said, anger creeping into his mechanical voice. "No, I'm just not fighting," Saitama corrected. "There's a difference. You haven't tried to hurt me yet that I couldn't just walk through, and you're asking questions instead of just attacking for no reason. Seems like you're being pretty reasonable, actually." Vader deactivated his lightsaber. The assessment was accurate. He was being reasonable by his standards, which meant he hadn't yet decided whether this stranger needed to be killed or contained. The tactical part of his mind, the part that had once been Anakin Skywalker the warrior, recognized something critical. This being could have killed him at any point during their exchange. The casual dodges, the complete lack of defensive posture, these weren't the movements of someone afraid. They were the movements of someone for whom combat held no stakes whatsoever. "You claim to seek a way home," Vader said, his tactical mind shifting approaches. "Such technology or power does not exist in Imperial databases. You would need resources, information, access to facilities capable of analyzing your arrival." "Yeah, probably," Saitama agreed. "Do you guys have scientists or something? Someone smart who could figure this out?" "The Empire has many resources." Vader's mask turned slightly, sensors analyzing Saitama's reaction. "But such assistance comes with expectations. You would serve the Empire's interests in exchange for aid in returning to your world." Saitama considered this for a moment, his expression thoughtful in that bland way that somehow made it impossible to read his intentions. "What kind of service?" "I'm not really into evil Empire stuff. Had some issues with monsters who wanted to take over the world back home. Didn't work out great for them." "Evil is a matter of perspective," Vader replied. "The Empire brings order to a chaotic galaxy, stability where there was only war and corruption. By shooting at random lost people in the desert?" The point landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Vader's respirator breathed in the silence that followed. This strange being wasn't Force-sensitive, yet somehow he'd identified the fundamental weakness in Vader's argument with the directness of someone who'd dealt with authoritarians before. "The initial engagement was a defensive response to an unknown threat," Vader said finally. "Had you identified yourself properly?" "I did identify myself," Saitama interrupted mildly. "I told your soldiers I was lost and needed directions, They shot at me. Then more soldiers came and shot at me more. Then they broke my cabbages. Vader's gloved hand clenched. The being wasn't wrong, which made the situation more complicated. The Empire's standard protocols for unknown entities were aggressive by design. Shoot first, determine threat level from the wreckage. It worked effectively on conventional targets. But Saitama was proving to be anything but conventional. "Come with me to the Star Destroyer in orbit," Vader offered, changing tactics again. "Allow Imperial scientists to examine how you arrived here. In exchange, we will search for methods to return you to your Earth. No further hostilities." Saitama looked up at the sky where, even in daylight, a few stars were visible. One of them was probably the ship Vader mentioned. The offer seemed reasonable enough. Scientists who might actually understand what happened, resources to figure out how to get home, and no more people shooting at him. "What if your scientists can't figure it out?" Saitama asked. "Then we will continue searching. The Empire's reach is vast. If a way exists, we will find it." Saitama considered this for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but I'm not joining your empire or fighting in your wars or whatever. I'm just here to figure out how to get home and maybe find a grocery store in the meantime." "Agreed," Vader said, though his mind was already calculating the possibilities. This being, Saitama, represented power beyond anything the Empire currently possessed. If they couldn't send him home immediately, perhaps they could find other uses for someone invincible. The Emperor would certainly be interested in such a resource, but as Vader turned to lead Saitama toward the shuttle, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. The Force whispered warnings he couldn't quite interpret, as if reality itself was trying to tell him that some beings existed outside the normal rules of power and manipulation. Saitama followed the Dark Lord toward the black shuttle, his grocery bag in hand, completely unaware that his simple desire to go home had just intersected with the galaxy's most ruthless regime. Behind them, Imperial forces began packing up, their reports already being transmitted to High Command. A new variable had entered the galactic civil war, one that understood neither the Force nor the politics of the galaxy. Far, far away. Just a hero who wanted to go home and maybe find a decent grocery store along the way. The Star Destroyer Executor hung in Tatooine's orbit like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart. Saitama pressed his face against the shuttle viewport as they approached, watching the massive warship grow larger until it filled his entire field of vision. He'd seen big things before: skyscraper-sized monsters, giant robots, even that one alien spaceship that had attacked City A. But this vessel operated on a scale that suggested an entire civilization built around warfare. "That's a really big ship," Saitama observed as the shuttle entered the hangar bay. "Do you need it that big?" "The Executor is a super Star Destroyer," Vader replied from his seat across the shuttle's interior. "Over 19 kilometers long. It serves as the Empire's mobile command center and symbol of Imperial might." 19 kilometers? Saitama's eyes widened slightly, the most expression he'd shown since arriving. "That seems excessive. How much does the fuel cost?" The question was so mundane, so divorced from the gravitas Vader's explanation had carried, that the Dark Lord actually paused before responding. "Fuel efficiency is not a primary concern for the Imperial Navy." "Huh," Saitama sat back. "That's probably why you need such a big empire. Gotta pay for all this somehow." The shuttle settled onto the hangar deck with barely a tremor. Stormtroopers and naval personnel had assembled in precise formations, weapons ready but held at ease. Vader had transmitted orders during the flight that the passenger was to be treated as a reluctant guest rather than a prisoner. The distinction was subtle but important in Imperial protocol. Saitama followed Vader down the boarding ramp, his red boots clanging against the metal deck. He looked around the massive hangar bay with interest, taking in the rows of TIE fighters, the organized chaos of military operations, the sheer scale of personnel required to operate a vessel this size. Several officers and technicians stopped mid-task to stare at the strange bald man in the yellow and white costume walking beside Lord Vader. Lord Vader, a naval officer, approached, saluting crisply. His uniform was immaculate, but sweat beaded on his forehead. The Emperor has requested immediate communication regarding... His eyes flicked nervously to Saitama. The situation. I will speak with him shortly, Vader said. First, take our guest to Science Bay 7. Have Chief Technician Arvel begin preliminary scans. Non-invasive protocols only. Yes, my lord. The officer gestured to a squad of stormtroopers. Please follow me, sir. Saitama trailed after the nervous officer, leaving Vader standing alone in the hangar bay. The Dark Lord watched him go, then turned toward the command deck. The Emperor would indeed want an explanation, and Vader suspected his master would be very interested in what had arrived on Tatooine. Science Bay 7 was a cramped space filled with monitoring equipment, analysis stations, and enough blinking lights to stock a small arcade. Chief Technician Arvel, a thin man with cybernetic optical implants, looked up from his workstation as Saitama entered. So you're the anomaly, Arvel said, professional interest overriding any fear he might have felt. Lord Vader says you appeared on Tatooine through unknown means. Is that accurate? Yeah, pretty much. Saitama sat on the examination chair, which groaned under what should have been normal human weight, but somehow felt heavier. One minute I'm grocery shopping, the next I'm on a desert planet with 2 suns. Can you figure out how that happened? We can certainly try. Arvel activated several scanning arrays, holographic displays lighting up around Saitama. I'll need to run some basic diagnostics first. Just sit still and try to relax. Saitama sat perfectly still as sensors swept over him. Arvel's cybernetic eyes widened as data began flooding his screens. That's unusual. What is? Your cellular density. Arvel adjusted the scanners, running the sequence again. The readings say your body mass should be compressing you into a singularity, but you're just sitting there, like a normal human. I get that a lot, Saitama said. Does it help figure out how I got here? Possibly, if you're operating under different physical laws than the rest of the galaxy. Arvel trailed off, fingers flying across his console. Can you tell me about your home planet? Any unusual properties? Different physics? Not really, just normal Earth. Gravity, air, water. We've got heroes and monsters, but that's pretty standard where I'm from. Heroes and monsters. Arvel made notes without looking up. Define that relationship. Monsters show up, attack cities. Heroes fight them off. I'm a hero. Class S, rank 7. Though I probably should be higher ranked, but that's a whole political thing. Saitama waved his hand dismissively. Point is, monsters appear. I punch them. They stop being a problem. You punch them. Yeah, usually once. Sometimes twice if they're really tough, but that's rare. Arvel looked up from his console, studying Saitama with his cybernetic eyes. The man wasn't boasting. His tone carried the same energy as someone describing their morning commute. Mundane, routine, boring even. And these monsters, Arvel continued carefully, how powerful are they? Saitama considered this. Well, there was this one guy who could destroy planets. Another one was the strongest being in the universe, supposedly. There's been giant aliens, sea creatures the size of cities. A ninja who moved faster than sound. He paused. Most of them aren't that impressive, honestly. They talk a lot about destroying humanity, but then they just kind of don't. The scientist's hands had stopped moving on his console. You're saying you regularly fight planet-destroying entities? Not regularly. Most of the time, it's just like wolf-level threats or demon-level threats. The really strong ones are pretty rare, which is why it's boring. Saitama's expression grew slightly more melancholy. I got so strong that nothing challenges me anymore. Every fight ends the same way. Arvel glanced at his scans again. The readings were stable now, having recalibrated to accept the impossible density readings as Saitama's baseline. I think I'm beginning to understand the scope of what we're dealing with, he muttered. Lord Vader will want to hear this. Is he the strongest person here? Saitama asked with a hint of hope. He had that laser sword and could move really fast. Maybe he'd be a good fight. Lord Vader is extremely powerful, Arvel said carefully. But if what you're telling me is accurate, it is. Then no, he wouldn't be a good fight. Nothing in this galaxy would be. Saitama's shoulders slumped slightly. Yeah, that's what I figured. Same problem, different universe. Across the ship, in a darkened chamber designed for privacy and secure communications, Darth Vader knelt before a massive holographic projection. The Emperor's face filled the space, his yellow eyes gleaming with interest beneath his hood. Master, Vader intoned, I have recovered the anomaly from Tatooine. He calls himself Saitama, claims to be from a planet called Earth, and demonstrates capabilities that exceed anything in our records. Show me, Palpatine commanded. Vader activated the tactical recordings from the desert engagement. The Emperor watched in silence as blaster fire splashed harmlessly off Saitama's body as the AT-AT collapsed from his casual touch, as Vader's own lightsaber attacks missed again and again. Fascinating, Palpatine hissed when the recordings ended. No force presence, no energy signature, yet he possesses strength that surpasses even your own, Lord Vader. How did such a being arrive in our galaxy? Unknown, Master. He claims to have been transported during a mundane activity on his homeworld. The method remains unclear. Could he be a weapon, a sleeper agent from the rebellion? Unlikely. He shows no awareness of galactic politics, no understanding of the Force, and no deception in his manner. He appears to be exactly what he claims, a lost traveler seeking a way home. The Emperor's fingers steepled beneath his chin. And you believe you can control such power? Turn it to the Empire's use? I believe, Vader said carefully, that attempting to force his compliance would be counterproductive. However, he has agreed to allow our scientists to study his arrival in exchange for assistance returning home. While we work on that problem, perhaps opportunities will present themselves. Yes, Palpatine said slowly. Yes, they might. But be cautious, my apprentice. Beings of such power often prove difficult to manipulate. The Force gives us insight into minds and wills. With this, Saitama, you would be blind. I understand, Master. Good. Continue your investigation. Learn what you can. And Vader, the Emperor's smile was sharp. Do not mistake his simple manner for simple thinking. Someone who achieves such power understands more than they let on. The hologram flickered out, leaving Vader alone in the darkness. The warning was noted and filed away. The Emperor was right. Saitama's casual attitude and straightforward responses could mask deeper awareness. Or, equally possible, the being was simply too powerful to care about the machinations of those around him. Either way, Vader had a resource to assess and potentially utilize. The Rebel Alliance had been growing bolder in recent months. A weapon that couldn't be stopped by conventional means would shift the balance of power dramatically. If only he could find a way to aim it. Back in Science Bay 7, Saitama was answering questions while Arvel took notes with increasing disbelief. So, you're saying the training regimen that gave you these abilities was 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats and a 10-kilometer run every single day. For 3 years, Saitama confirmed. Also, no air conditioning, 3 meals a day, and a banana for breakfast. That's just basic exercise. I know. Everyone's surprised by it. Arvel rubbed his temples. There has to be more. Some element you're not remembering. Exposure to radiation? Genetic modification? A force awakening? Nope. Just regular training. I was a normal guy who wanted to be a hero, so I trained until I became one. Saitama scratched his bald head. Lost all my hair in the process, though. That was unexpected. The scientist stared at his data screens, which stubbornly refused to provide any explanation that made sense within known physics. I'll need to consult with the Imperial Science Bureau. This is beyond my expertise. Sure. Saitama stood up. Can I get something to eat while you do that? I haven't had anything except cabbage since I got here, and I'm getting pretty hungry. Arvel contacted the bridge, and within minutes a nervous ensign appeared with directions to the nearest mess hall. Saitama followed the young officer through the Star Destroyer's corridors, oblivious to the stares and whispers that followed in his wake. Word had already spread through the ship about the strange being that Lord Vader himself had brought aboard, the one who'd survived everything the Empire threw at him and destroyed an AT-AT by accident. The mess hall was crowded with off-duty personnel, the air filled with conversations and the smell of reconstituted rations. Saitama got in line behind a group of stormtroopers, studying the food options with interest. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to a gray protein block. "Standard ration cube, sir," the serving droid responded. "Nutritionally complete. Would you like one?" "Sure. And that?" He pointed to a brown liquid. "CAF, stimulant beverage." "I'll try it." Saitama loaded his tray and found an empty table. The food was bland but edible, better than some of the discount groceries he bought back in City Z. As he ate, he couldn't help but notice that every person in the mess hall was watching him with varying degrees of curiosity and fear. A junior officer approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, sir. Are you really the one who—" he lowered his voice, "who stopped an entire battalion?" "I didn't stop anyone," Saitama said between bites. "They stopped themselves after they realized shooting me wasn't working." "Is it true you made Lord Vader miss during a lightsaber duel?" "He wasn't trying to duel. He was just testing me, I think." Saitama took a sip of CAF and grimaced. "This coffee tastes weird." The officer blinked at the casual dismissal of what should have been a life-or-death encounter. "You're not afraid of Lord Vader?" "Should I be? He seems reasonable enough, asked me questions instead of just attacking, offered to help me get home. Seems like an okay guy for running an evil empire." Nervous laughter rippled through the nearby tables. The idea of calling Lord Vader an okay guy was so absurd that no one knew how to respond. But Saitama wasn't joking. His expression remained as blandly neutral as always. "We're not evil," another officer spoke up defensively. "The Empire maintains order." Yeah, order and stability," Saitama interrupted. "I heard that speech already. Look, I'm not here to judge your politics. I just want to go home. Whatever war you're fighting, it's not my problem." The mess hall fell silent. That attitude, complete disinterest in the galactic conflict that defined everyone's lives, was as alien as Saitama himself. Everyone aboard the Executor had chosen a side, or had a side chosen for them. The idea of someone with incredible power simply opting out was almost offensive. Saitama finished his meal, returned his tray, and wandered back toward Science Bay 7. Behind him, the mess hall erupted in whispered conversations about the strange being that Lord Vader had brought aboard. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. None of them understood that Saitama was the rarest kind of person in any universe, someone powerful enough that choosing sides was genuinely optional. The distress signal reached the Executor 3 days into Saitama's stay aboard the Star Destroyer. He'd spent that time wandering the ship, eating meals with increasingly confused crew members, and answering the same scientific questions in different ways, while technicians failed to explain how his existence was possible. The routine was boring, though everything was boring when you were invincible. But at least the food was free, and the scientists seemed genuinely interested in helping him get home. Saitama was in Science Bay 7, watching Arvel recalibrate scanning equipment for the dozenth time when the alarm klaxons blared throughout the ship. "What's that noise?" Saitama asked, covering his ears. Arvel's console lit up with tactical displays. "Distress signal. Looks like pirates attacking a rebel supply convoy in the Karthak system." The technician's face went pale. "Lord Vader is scrambling TIE squadrons." "Pirates?" Saitama's interest perked slightly. "Like space pirates? With spaceships?" "Yes, but..." Arvel looked up from his screen. "You need to stay here. This is a military operation. Very dangerous." Saitama was already heading for the door. "I want to see space pirates." "Wait," Arvel called after him, but Saitama was gone, following the flow of personnel rushing toward their battle stations. The technician scrambled to contact the bridge. "Security, this is Science Bay 7. The anomaly is heading toward... Where is he heading?" Saitama followed the sounds of organized chaos until he reached a massive hangar bay where TIE fighters were launching in squadrons. Pilots rushed past him toward their craft, technicians made final checks on weapon systems, and officers barked orders over the din. Through the atmospheric containment field, he could see the stars and a distant cluster of ships engaged in combat. "You there?" A deck officer spotted Saitama. "This is a restricted area. Return to..." The officer's voice died as he recognized the bald figure in the yellow costume. "Oh, you're the guest." "Those are the space pirates?" Saitama asked, pointing at the distant ships. "Yes, sir. Karthak corsairs, scum who prey on shipping lanes. They've ambushed a rebel convoy and..." The officer caught himself. "Why am I explaining this? You need to return to the science section immediately." But Saitama was staring at the stars with an expression that almost approached interest. "I've never been in space before, not like actually out in it." "Sir, please, can people breathe out there?" "What? No, of course not. That's the vacuum of space. Anyone exposed without proper protection would die in seconds from..." Saitama stepped through the atmospheric containment field. The deck officer's eyes went wide with horror. "No, stop, you'll..." But Saitama was already floating in the void, his cape drifting behind him in the absence of gravity. The vacuum that should have killed him instantly seemed to have no effect whatsoever. He experimentally kicked his legs, finding that movement without ground beneath him required different techniques than he was used to. "Huh," came Saitama's voice over the comm system, somehow his words still transmitting despite lacking air to carry them. "This feels weird. Like swimming but without water." The deck officer stared in disbelief as Saitama oriented himself toward the distant battle and simply launched. No propulsion system, no maneuvering jets. He just pushed off from nothing and accelerated toward the pirate ships at speeds that made the TIE fighters look stationary. The pirate attack was going well, from the pirates' perspective. 3 rebel transport ships burned in space, their hulls breached by turbolaser fire. The remaining convoy ships attempted to scatter, but the corsair vessels herded them like hunters, corralling prey. The Karthak pirates specialized in this kind of raid, hit fast, hit hard, steal everything valuable, and vanish before Imperial patrols arrived. Except Imperial patrols had arrived. TIE fighters streamed from the Executor. their ion engines screaming even in the void as they engaged the pirate interceptors. The battle expanded into a three-way engagement, rebels trying to escape, pirates trying to complete their raid, and Imperials trying to destroy everyone. The pirate captain, a scarred Wiki named Sargo, watched his tactical display with growing concern. Imperial Star Destroyer just entered the system. We need to grab what we can and jump to hyperspace before... Captain, his sensor officer called out. Unknown contact approaching at impossible velocity. It's a person. What? Sargo stared at his screens. The sensors weren't malfunctioning. They clearly showed a human-sized object moving through space at speeds that should have been crushing any organic being into paste. That can't be right. Run the scan again. The object reached the pirate fleet in seconds. One moment it was a distant blip. The next it was right in front of the lead Corsair's viewport. Saitama floated in space, studying the pirate ship with interest. It was smaller than the Imperial vessels, uglier too, with mismatched hull plates and weapons clearly salvaged from multiple sources. He could see faces pressed against the viewport, staring at him with expressions of shock. Cool ship, Saitama said to no one, forgetting that sound doesn't travel in vacuum. He reached out and knocked on the viewport like someone checking if anyone was home. The reinforced transparasteel cracked under his knuckles. Inside the ship, alarms blared. Hull breach imminent, someone screamed. How is there a person outside the ship? Saitama noticed the cracks spreading from where he'd knocked and quickly pulled his hand back. Oops, sorry. He moved away from the viewport, not wanting to accidentally kill anyone by breaking their window in space. The pirate ship's weapon systems tracked him automatically, turbo lasers swiveling to target the impossible being floating outside. Sargo, making snap decisions based on decades of space combat, ordered fire. Green energy bolts lanced across the void, converging on Saitama's position. He watched them come with mild interest. They looked different than the red ones the Imperials used, and then they hit him. The turbo laser fire splashed against his body like water against a rock. Saitama floated there, completely unharmed. As the pirate ship exhausted its forward batteries, trying to destroy him. When the firing stopped, he looked down at his costume to make sure it wasn't damaged. These things really don't hurt, Saitama commented to himself. The laser sword guy's weapon was more interesting. He pushed off from empty space again, accelerating toward another pirate vessel. This time, he wasn't trying to knock on their window. He just wanted to get a closer look at how the ship's engines worked. But his trajectory took him directly through the vessel's shield generators. The generators exploded on contact. Not because Saitama had attacked them, but simply because his impossible mass and density couldn't be processed by energy fields designed to deflect known threats. He passed through the shields like they didn't exist, through the hull plating like it was paper, and out the other side of the ship before he realized he'd gone completely through it. Saitama stopped himself in space, looking back at the pirate ship. Oh no, I didn't mean to... The vessel broke apart, its structural integrity compromised, atmosphere venting into space. He watched escape pods launching and felt relieved that the crew was evacuating. He really hadn't meant to destroy their ship. He just wanted to look at it. Warning, came a transmission in his ear. Apparently, the suit could receive broadcasts even in space. Unknown entity engaging hostile vessels, all fighters, maintain distance from the anomaly. Saitama looked around and spotted the TIE fighters swarming through the battle zone. They were fighting the other pirate ships, which were now scattering in panic. The rebel transports were using the confusion to escape toward the outer system. Another pirate ship oriented toward him, its captain apparently deciding that whatever Saitama was, it needed to be destroyed. Missiles launched, dozens of them, each programmed to track heat signatures. But Saitama didn't give off heat signatures. He was somehow maintaining body temperature in the vacuum of space through sheer impossibility. The missiles exploded harmlessly around him, their fragmentation warheads finding no purchase on his invulnerable body. Saitama sighed, a pointless gesture without air, but habit died hard. I'm not even trying to fight and ships keep exploding. He decided to move away from the pirate vessels before he accidentally destroyed any more of them. But as he pushed off, his trajectory took him past one of the burning rebel transports. Through a breached section of hull, he could see people in spacesuits desperately trying to seal emergency bulkheads. Saitama changed direction, moving toward the damaged ship. The rebels inside saw him coming and panicked. After all, the last ship he'd approached had been obliterated. But instead of attacking, Saitama grabbed the edge of the hull breach and simply pulled. The torn metal groaned as he forced it back into shape, bending Durasteel like it was clay. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to reduce the breach from critical to manageable. The rebels inside stared in disbelief as their impossible rescuer worked, his casual strength accomplishing in seconds what would have taken engineering teams hours. "There," Saitama said, giving the hull plating one final adjustment. "That should help." He moved to the next damaged transport, then the third, quickly patching critical breaches by simply bending metal back into place with his bare hands. The rebel crews could only watch in stunned silence as this strange, bald figure in a cape moved through space like an invulnerable guardian angel. On the bridge of the Executor, Vader watched the tactical display with something approaching disbelief. The engagement had lasted less than 4 minutes. The pirate fleet was destroyed or scattered. The rebel transports were damaged but operational. And Saitama floated in the midst of it all, apparently unaware of the chaos he'd caused. "Recall all fighters," Vader ordered. "Bring him back aboard." "My lord," the tactical officer ventured carefully, "the rebel ships are escaping. Should we pursue?" Vader considered the damaged transports limping toward the system's edge. Normally, yes. Every rebel vessel destroyed brought the Empire closer to total victory. But his attention was focused on the being who'd just demonstrated that conventional space combat tactics were meaningless in his presence. "Let them go," Vader decided. "They'll spread word of what they saw here. Sometimes fear is more valuable than debris." The officer looked confused but transmitted the order. The TIE fighters disengaged, and a shuttle was dispatched to collect Saitama, who was still examining one of the transport ships with innocent curiosity. When Saitama returned to the Executor, he was met by Vader himself in the hangar bay. The Dark Lord stood with arms crossed, his respirator breathing steadily as Saitama floated through the atmospheric field and dropped gently to the deck. "That was interesting," Saitama said before Vader could speak. "Space is weird. No gravity, no air, but I could still move around okay. The pirate ships weren't as cool as yours, though." "You destroyed an entire pirate squadron," Vader stated. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see their ships up close, and then things kept exploding when I touched them." Saitama's expression showed genuine concern. Did everyone get to the escape pods okay? "Sensor data indicates all pirate vessels successfully evacuated before catastrophic failure," Vader confirmed. "You also rendered aid to rebel transports." "Yeah, their ships were breached. People were in danger. Seemed like the hero thing to do." Vader studied him in silence. The being had just obliterated enemy vessels, survived weapons fire that would have destroyed capital ships, operated in hard vacuum without protection, and his primary concern was whether the pirates had escaped safely. The tactical implications were staggering. The moral implications were complicated. "You comprehend that the rebels are enemies of the Empire," Vader said carefully. "By aiding them, you acted against Imperial interests." "I helped people who were about to die in space," Saitama corrected. I don't really care about your empire or their rebellion. People needed help, so I helped. That's what heroes do. The simplicity of that worldview, help people in danger regardless of faction or politics, was so fundamentally opposed to how the Empire operated that Vader almost didn't know how to respond. The Emperor would be furious if he learned that their guest had aided rebel vessels. But Vader also recognized that attempting to discipline or threaten Saitama would be counterproductive. In the future, Vader said slowly, you will remain aboard the ship during combat operations. Sure, Saitama agreed easily. I was just bored and wanted to see the space pirates. Are there going to be more battles? Because if space combat is just ships shooting at each other from far away, it's not that interesting. Vader's respirator breathed in, out. The being had just participated in his first space battle, accidentally destroyed multiple vessels, rendered aid to the enemy, and his assessment was that it wasn't that interesting. Return to Science Bay 7, Vader ordered. Technician Arvel has questions about your physiology. Okay. Saitama headed toward the exit, then paused. Hey, do you guys have any fresh vegetables on this ship? The food cubes are fine, but I really miss having actual groceries. I will have the quartermaster address your dietary requirements, Vader said, because what else could he say to someone who'd just demonstrated the ability to destroy starships with casual physical contact, and was primarily concerned about vegetable availability. As Saitama left the hangar, Vader turned to his tactical officers. Begin analysis of the engagement. I want detailed reports on how the anomaly moved through space, his destructive capabilities, and he paused. His apparent inability to differentiate friend from foe based on his personal moral code rather than imperial doctrine. The Emperor would not be pleased, but Vader was beginning to realize that Saitama represented something unique in the galaxy. Power completely divorced from ambition, philosophy, or political allegiance. He was simply a hero who helped people and wanted to go home, which made him either the most dangerous being in the galaxy or the most useless, depending on how one chose to look at it. The holographic image of Emperor Palpatine flickered with barely contained rage. Vader knelt in the communication chamber, his posture betraying nothing of the calculations running through his mind. The conversation was proceeding exactly as he'd anticipated, badly. You allowed him to aid rebel vessels, Palpatine hissed, each word dripping with venom. Under your supervision, this weapon destroyed Imperial targets while rendering assistance to our enemies. The pirate vessels were not Imperial targets, Master, Vader corrected carefully. They were hostile to all parties. Do not parse semantics with me, Lord Vader. The Emperor's yellow eyes blazed. The being's power is unprecedented. It could turn the tide of this war in our favor. Yet you've allowed it to operate based on its own naive moral code rather than imperial necessity. Attempting to force compliance would be inadvisable, Vader replied. He operates beyond our capacity to threaten or control. Coercion will only drive him away or, worse, turn him actively against imperial interests. Palpatine's withered hands clenched on his throne's armrests. Then make him want to serve the Empire, show him the rebellion's atrocities, demonstrate how imperial order prevents chaos, use whatever methods necessary, but bring that power under our control. I will make the attempt, Master. However, Vader paused, choosing his words with precision. I believe we should prepare for the possibility that he cannot be controlled. His worldview does not align with political or military objectives. He acts based on immediate circumstances rather than strategic considerations. Then he is useless to us, Palpatine declared. If the weapon cannot be aimed, it has no value. Dispose of him. Vader had anticipated this as well. I do not believe disposal is possible, Master. Our weapons cannot harm him. The Force cannot touch him. He exists outside the paradigms we understand." Silence filled the chamber. When Palpatine spoke again, his voice had shifted from rage to cold calculation. "Then we must find his weakness. Everyone has one, Lord Vader. Even beings that appear invincible. Find his weakness and exploit it. Or find a way to remove him from this galaxy entirely, preferably before the rebellion discovers his existence and attempts their own recruitment." The hologram winked out. Vader remained kneeling for a moment, processing the conversation. The Emperor wanted Saitama controlled or eliminated, but Vader's instincts, the tactical genius that had made Anakin Skywalker a legendary general, suggested a third option the Emperor hadn't considered: neutrality. If Saitama truly didn't care about galactic politics, if his only objective was returning home, then perhaps the solution was accelerating that departure. Let the scientists genuinely work on the problem. Give Saitama no reason to take sides, and when he eventually left, the galaxy would return to its previous conflicts without this unpredictable variable complicating everything. The question was whether the Emperor would accept that solution, or whether Palpatine's need to control everything would force a confrontation that even Vader couldn't predict the outcome of. In Science Bay 7, Saitama sat patiently while Technician Arvel ran yet another battery of tests. The scientist had brought in 3 colleagues from the Imperial Science Bureau, and all of them were staring at data screens with expressions ranging from confusion to existential dread. "It's impossible," one scientist muttered, a Bith with an enlarged cranium designed for enhanced cognitive processing. "His cellular structure shouldn't allow movement. The density alone should collapse him into a black hole." "But it doesn't," Arvel said tiredly. "We've established that. The question is why." "Perhaps his universe operates under different physical constants," suggested a female researcher. "If the fundamental forces, then he'd be affected by our physical constants upon arrival," the Bith interrupted. "Yet he isn't. He's somehow maintaining his home universe's rules locally while existing in ours." Saitama listened to them debate with the patient expression of someone who'd heard similar discussions many times. Back on Earth, scientists had tried to explain his power too. They'd used words like limiter removal and biological impossibility and statistical anomaly. None of them ever reached a satisfying conclusion. "Have you figured out how to send me home yet?" Saitama asked during a lull in the argument. The scientists exchanged uncomfortable looks. "Not exactly," Arvel admitted. "We're still trying to understand how you arrived. Without that data, reverse engineering a return method is theoretical at best. So you can't do it." "Not yet," Arvel said quickly, "but we're working on it. The Empire has vast resources. We've contacted research stations across the galaxy." "I don't think they're going to figure it out," Saitama said, not unkindly, just stating what seemed obvious to him. "If some weird space magic thing brought me here, your science probably can't reverse it." The scientists bristled at space magic, but none of them could actually argue the point. Whatever force had transported Saitama across dimensional barriers operated beyond their understanding of hyperspace, subspace, or any known method of faster-than-light travel. "There might be another option," the female researcher ventured. "The Force. If ancient Force users possessed knowledge of dimensional travel." "The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was destroyed," Arvel cut in quickly, aware that discussing such things could be considered treasonous. "And the Jedi Order is extinct," Vader's voice cut through the laboratory like a blade. Everyone snapped to attention as the Dark Lord entered, his cape flowing behind him. "Or nearly so. However, the researcher raises a valid point." Vader approached Saitama, who remained seated and merely continue looked up at the towering Sith Lord with polite interest. Ancient Sith holocrons contain knowledge lost to modern science. Dimensional rifts, temporal anomalies, reality manipulation. If your arrival was caused by Force-related phenomena, those archives might provide answers. Okay, Saitama said. Where are these holocrons? Scattered across the galaxy. Many were destroyed or lost during the Jedi Purge. However, Vader paused, making a decision that he suspected the Emperor would disapprove of. I know the location of several Sith temples that might contain relevant information. Cool. Can we check them out? The scientists looked shocked at Saitama's casual response to visiting sites steeped in the dark side. But Vader had already recognized that the being had no Force sensitivity. The dark side's corruption would have no effect on someone who existed outside the Force entirely. We will depart for Malachor tomorrow, Vader decided. The temple there contains holocrons dating back to the ancient Sith Wars. If answers exist, we may find them there. Malachor, Arvel whispered nervously. My lord, that planet is dangerous. Yes? Vader's mask turned toward the technician. Which is why you and your colleagues will remain aboard the Executor. I will accompany Saitama personally. After Vader left to make preparations, the scientists clustered around Arvel's workstation, speaking in hushed tones. Malachor is a death trap, the Bith scientist hissed. The Sith temple there is guarded by dark side traps and ancient weapons. Even Inquisitors who've tried to explore it haven't all returned. Lord Vader isn't taking him there to find answers, Arvel said quietly, realization dawning. He's testing him, seeing if anything in that cursed place can harm him. And if it can, then the Empire finally has useful data on his vulnerabilities. And if it can't, Arvel glanced at the closed door. Then Lord Vader is confirming what we already suspect, that nothing in this galaxy can stop him. Meanwhile, in a hidden base in the Outer Rim, the Rebel Alliance was holding an emergency council session. Princess Leia Organa stood before a holographic display showing the engagement at Carthax System, her expression grave. Play it again, she ordered. The recording replayed, a figure in a yellow costume moving through space, destroying pirate vessels, then inexplicably helping repair rebel transports before Imperial forces could finish them off. Who is he? Mon Mothma asked from her council seat. Unknown, answered a rebel intelligence officer. The pilots who survived say he appeared during an Imperial assault, destroyed an entire pirate squadron apparently by accident, then bent hull plating with his bare hands to save our crews. An Imperial weapon? General Dodonna suggested. If so, why help our vessels escape? Leia countered. Imperial doctrine would be to destroy us while we were crippled. Perhaps he's a rogue Force user, someone proposed. No Force signature detected, the intelligence officer reported. Our sensors showed nothing but a standard humanoid, except he was surviving in hard vacuum and moving at impossible velocities. The council chamber fell silent as they processed the implications. The war against the Empire was precarious at best. The Alliance survived through hit-and-run tactics and scattered cells, always one step ahead of Imperial might. The introduction of a being with that level of power could shift the balance dramatically. The question was, whose side was he on? We need more information, Mon Mothma decided. Leia, you have contacts in Imperial-controlled sectors. Find out who this being is and what the Empire plans to do with him. And if we locate him, Leia asked, then we determine if the Alliance can trust him, or if we need to fear him as much as we fear Vader. Back aboard the Executor, Saitama was in his assigned quarters, a sparse room with military standard furnishings, trying to get the food dispenser to produce something resembling vegetables. The machine kept offering protein cubes in various colors, none of which looked particularly appetizing. A chime at his door interrupted his attempts. Come in, Saitama called. The door slid open to reveal Vader standing in the corridor, his imposing frame filling the doorway. "We depart for Malachor at dawn. Ensure you are prepared." "I'm always prepared," Saitama replied. "I wear the same outfit every day." Vader's respirator breathed steadily. Malachor is not like other worlds. The dark side permeates everything there. It drives the weak mad and kills the unprepared. Even I must exercise caution when walking its surface. "Will there be any strong opponents there?" Saitama asked with a hint of hope. "Possibly. The temple's guardians were designed to kill intruders. They have succeeded at that task for millennia." "Okay." Saitama's expression brightened slightly, still mostly bored, but with a fractional increase in interest. "Maybe there'll be a good fight." Vader studied him for a long moment. The being genuinely didn't understand fear, didn't recognize danger, didn't perceive threats the way normal creatures did, because nothing in his experience had ever been genuinely threatening. He existed in a state of permanent anticlimax, forever disappointed by challenges that proved insufficient. "We shall see," Vader said finally, and left. As the door closed, Saitama returned his attention to the food dispenser. He'd been in this galaxy for almost a week now, and while everyone was trying to help him get home, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be resolved quickly. The scientists were stumped. The leader guy in the hood seemed more interested in using him as a weapon than sending him home. And now they were visiting some ancient temple that was supposedly dangerous. It was all very complicated. Saitama preferred simple problems. Monster appears, punch monster, go home for dinner. This situation had too many politics, too many factions, too many people with hidden agendas. Still, the temple visit might be interesting. Ancient guardians designed to kill intruders sounded promising. Probably wouldn't be that strong, knowing his luck, but at least it was something different than floating around a spaceship eating protein cubes. He finally gave up on the dispenser and lay down on the too-short bunk, his legs hanging off the edge. Through the viewport, stars streaked past as the executor traveled through hyperspace toward whatever awaited on Malachor. Maybe, Saitama thought as he closed his eyes, this temple would have answers. Or maybe it would just be another disappointment in a long series of disappointments that came with being invincible. Either way, tomorrow would tell. Malachor was a planet that rejected life. The shuttle descended through an atmosphere thick with ash and dark side energy, the sky a perpetual twilight of crimson and black. Jagged mountains rose like broken teeth from scarred earth, and the remains of ancient battles littered the landscape. Shattered starships, crumbled temples, and the twisted remnants of superweapons that had ended entire civilizations. Saitama pressed his face against the viewport, watching the desolate world grow closer. "This place looks depressing." "Malachor is a wound in the Force," Vader explained, his voice carrying unusual gravity. "Millennia ago, a superweapon was activated here. It killed everything on the planet in an instant, Jedi, Sith, and innocents alike. The dark side has claimed this world ever since." "Why would anyone build a weapon that kills everyone?" Saitama asked. "That seems counterproductive. Desperation, fear, the belief that total annihilation is preferable to defeat." Vader's respirator breathed steadily. The Sith who survived understood that power without restraint leads only to destruction. That knowledge is contained within the temple we seek. The shuttle landed on a plateau overlooking a massive structure carved into the mountainside. The Sith temple was ancient beyond measure, its architecture predating the Republic itself. Massive statues of forgotten Dark Lords flanked the entrance, their faces eroded by time but still radiating malevolence. The very air around the temple seemed to writhe with invisible energy. Vader descended the boarding ramp first. his boots crunching on ground that had been lifeless for thousands of years. Saitama followed, immediately noticing how wrong everything felt. Not dangerous to him, nothing was dangerous to him, but wrong in a way he couldn't quite articulate, like the planet itself was angry. "Stay close," Vader commanded. "The temple's defenses activate for all intruders, regardless of force sensitivity." They approached the entrance, passing between the towering statues. As they crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped precipitously. Frost formed on the ancient stone walls, and shadows seemed to move independently of any light source. Vader ignited his lightsaber, the crimson blade providing illumination in the oppressive darkness. Saitama walked beside him, hands in his pockets, his cape dragging through millennia of accumulated dust. "It's cold in here. The dark side draws heat from living things," Vader explained. "It feeds on life energy. You should be experiencing extreme discomfort." "Nope, just cold, like when my apartment's heater breaks." They progressed deeper into the temple, following corridors lined with murals depicting the ancient Sith's conquests and philosophies. The artwork showed beings wielding the Force in ways that made modern applications look primitive, reality being twisted, stars being extinguished, entire fleets being crushed by thought alone. "These guys were pretty dramatic," Saitama observed, studying a mural showing a Sith Lord consuming a planet's life force. "Did they always wear robes? Seems impractical for fighting." Before Vader could respond, the first defense activated. The floor beneath Saitama gave way, ancient mechanisms triggering a pit trap designed to drop intruders into a chamber filled with crushing gravity fields. Saitama fell through the opening, disappearing into darkness. Vader moved to the edge, peering down with his sensors. The pit was over 100 meters deep, leading to a chamber where gravity had been artificially increased to levels that would pulverize bone and liquefy organs. He'd known this trap existed. It had killed 3 Inquisitors who'd attempted this temple before. A voice echoed from below. "Ow!" Vader's sensors detected movement. Saitama was climbing back up the pit shaft, casually gripping handholds in the sheer wall despite the crushing gravity trying to pull him down. He emerged from the pit, looking mildly annoyed. "That was rude," Saitama said, brushing dust off his costume. "Why would you build a trap floor in your own temple?" "To keep intruders from reaching the inner sanctum," Vader replied, making mental notes. "Gravity manipulation. No effect. Falling damage. No effect. Continue. There will be more." They proceeded through the temple, triggering defense after defense. Blade barriers that should have sliced them to ribbons simply broke against Saitama's skin. Poison gas that could kill through armor contact had no effect. Energy fields designed to disintegrate matter sparked and failed when Saitama walked through them. Ancient droids, their weapons charged with dark side energy, activated and opened fire. Saitama took the shots without breaking stride, then accidentally destroyed the droids by bumping into them while trying to get a better look at their construction. Vader watched it all with growing certainty. The temple's defenses represented millennia of Sith knowledge applied to killing intruders. They'd been refined through centuries of practice, tested on everyone from Jedi Masters to rival Sith Lords. They were comprehensively, utterly useless against Saitama. "These traps aren't very impressive," Saitama commented as they reached the inner sanctum. "The stuff back on Earth is more creative. We had this one villain who could trap people in dimensions made of their worst fears." That was interesting. The inner sanctum was a vast chamber, dominated by a pyramidal holocron the size of a land speeder. Dark side energy rolled off it in visible waves, and the walls were covered in Sith script describing forbidden knowledge. Vader approached the holocron carefully, his connection to the dark side allowing him to interface with its guardian, A holographic figure materialized, an ancient Sith Lord whose name had been lost to history. The gatekeeper's eyes fixed on Vader, then shifted to Saitama, and for the first time showed something approaching confusion. "Why have you brought something wrong into this holy place?" the gatekeeper demanded in ancient Sith dialect, which Vader's helmet automatically translated. "It does not belong to this reality. It should not be." "It seeks a way home," Vader replied in the same language. "Do the archives contain knowledge of dimensional travel? Of beings crossing between universes?" The gatekeeper's form flickered. The ancient Sith Lords experimented with such things, tearing holes in reality to access other dimensions, other timelines. They sought ultimate power by drawing from infinite sources. The hologram turned its gaze back to Saitama. But this one did not travel by Sith sorcery. It was pulled here by something far cruder. A rupture. An accident. "Can it be reversed?" Vader pressed. "Perhaps. The knowledge exists within these archives. But the power required would be immense. The energy output of a star, focused through Force users of incredible strength. Or," the gatekeeper paused, "the natural dissolution of the rupture over time, months, possibly years." Saitama had been listening quietly, and now he spoke up. "So I'm stuck here for months? Maybe years. Unless you can provide the equivalent of a stellar furnace," the gatekeeper confirmed, its ancient program unable to comprehend why this simple being wasn't terrified by such a prospect. "That's really inconvenient," Saitama said with genuine disappointment. "My rent's due next week. I'm going to lose my apartment." The mundane concern, voiced in a Sith temple by someone who just survived every deadly trap the ancient dark side masters could devise, was so absurd that even Vader paused. The being had been transported across dimensional barriers, was stranded in a galaxy at war, and his primary worry was rent payment. "The Empire can provide alternative housing," Vader offered. "It's not about the housing. I just had that place organized how I liked it." Saitama sighed. "And all my stuff is there. My manga collection, my games, my coupons for the grocery store." The gatekeeper's hologram wavered. You, you mourn for coupons. You possess strength beyond comprehension, yet you concern yourself with merchant discounts." "Good sales are hard to find," Saitama replied seriously. Vader found himself in the unusual position of agreeing with an ancient Sith holocron's bewilderment. "We should extract the relevant data and return to the executor. If the solution requires months of waiting, there is no purpose in remaining here." But as Vader moved to interface with the holocron's data ports, alarms suddenly blared through his helmet's systems. Multiple contacts approaching the temple. Fast. "We have company," Vader announced, his hand moving to his lightsaber. "More traps?" Saitama asked. "No. Worse." Vader's sensors identified the signatures. "Inquisitors. And they've brought an army." Outside the temple, 3 Imperial Inquisitors led a full battalion of stormtroopers and purge troopers onto the plateau. The 5th brother, 7th sister, and a new recruit known as the 10th brother had received orders directly from the Emperor. Vader was compromised by the anomaly's presence. They were to eliminate both the Dark Lord and his inexplicable companion, then report that Vader had been corrupted by the dark side energies of Malachor. It was a coup, carefully orchestrated by Palpatine, who'd grown concerned that Vader's loyalty had been compromised. The Emperor wanted the anomaly destroyed, and his apprentice reminded of his place, or replaced entirely. "Lord Vader," the 5th brother's voice boomed across the plateau through speakers. "You have been declared compromised. Surrender the anomaly and yourself for Imperial judgment." Inside the temple, Vader's respirator breathed steadily as he calculated odds. 3 Inquisitors. all skilled in the dark side and trained to hunt Force users, at least 200 elite troops with anti-Force user weapons, and himself, powerful but not invincible. Then there was Saitama, who was checking his gloves for dust. "They're here for me?" Saitama asked. "They're here to eliminate us both," Vader corrected. "The Emperor has decided you cannot be controlled, therefore you must be destroyed." "But I haven't done anything." "Your existence is a threat to the established order. In the Empire's view, that is sufficient cause for elimination." Saitama's expression didn't change from its default blankness, but something in his posture shifted slightly. "I've been pretty patient with you guys. Your scientists have been trying to help me. You've been showing me around, feeding me. But now someone decides I should die just because I'm inconvenient." "Correct," Vader said simply. "That's pretty villainous." "Yes." Saitama walked toward the temple entrance. "Wait here. I'll handle this." Vader considered stopping him, then decided observation would be more valuable. He followed at a distance as Saitama emerged into the crimson twilight of Malachor, facing down the assembled Imperial force. The fifth brother stepped forward, his double-bladed lightsaber igniting. "You will come with us, Anomaly. Resistance will result in immediate termination." "I have a name," Saitama said calmly. "It's Saitama, and I'm not going anywhere with people who just tried to kill me because your boss is paranoid." "Then you choose death." The fifth brother gestured, and every weapon on the plateau opened fire simultaneously. The barrage was incredible. Blaster fire, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, and dark side energy channeled through the Inquisitor's lightsabers, all converging on Saitama's position. The ancient plateau shook under the sustained assault. Stone vaporized. The air itself ignited. When the smoke cleared, Saitama stood exactly where he'd been, completely unharmed, looking disappointed. "You know what? I'm getting really tired of everyone's first response being, 'Shoot the bald guy,'" Saitama said. "Back home, at least the monsters tried to be creative about it." The seventh sister's eyes widened behind her mask. "Impossible. Nothing survives that level of—" Saitama moved. One moment he was standing 50 meters away. The next he was in front of the seventh sister, his fist already in motion. It wasn't a serious punch, just a tap by his standards, but the force behind it sent the Inquisitor flying backward like a missile. She crashed through 3 stone pillars before finally stopping. Her armor crumpled and her lightsaber shattered. The fifth brother roared and charged, his spinning lightsaber blades seeking Saitama's neck. Saitama caught the weapon with one hand, stopping the energy blades cold. The fifth brother pushed with all his strength, channeling the dark side to enhance his power, but the lightsaber didn't budge even a millimeter. "These laser swords are pretty cool," Saitama observed, studying the weapon. "But they don't really cut anything if you're strong enough, huh?" He flicked his wrist. The lightsaber and the fifth brother, still holding it, went flying across the plateau, tumbling end over end before crashing into a distant rock formation. The 10th brother tried to flee, recognizing that they'd been sent to fight something far beyond their capabilities. Saitama appeared in front of him in an instant, moving so fast that the Inquisitor didn't even register the motion. "Where are you going?" Saitama asked. "You guys started this." "Please," the 10th brother stammered, his training abandoning him in the face of true terror. "We were just following orders." "Yeah, everyone says that." Saitama grabbed the Inquisitor's armor and tossed him gently toward where the seventh sister lay groaning. "Stay down. I don't want to actually hurt you." The stormtroopers, watching 3 Inquisitors being casually defeated in seconds, broke ranks. Training could only override survival instinct for so long. They scattered, some running for their transports, others simply fleeing into Malachor's wastes. Within 2 minutes the plateau was empty, except for the 3 incapacitated Inquisitors, Vader and Saitama. "Well," Saitama said, walking back to where Vader stood. That was annoying. Do you want to keep going with your empire, or are we going to have a problem? Vader looked at the destruction Saitama had casually inflicted. 3 of the Empire's most dangerous Force users defeated without effort, an entire battalion routed without casualties, because Saitama had been holding back, ensuring he only incapacitated rather than killed. The Emperor has declared us both enemies, Vader said slowly. My choices are limited. You could quit, Saitama suggested. Stop working for the evil Empire. Do something else. The suggestion was so simple, so divorced from the complexity of Vader's situation, that he almost laughed. Quit. As if decades of service, cybernetic dependence on Imperial life support, and the dark side binding his very essence to Palpatine's will could simply be walked away from. But standing before him was someone who'd proven that impossible things happened regularly. Someone whose very existence defied every rule Vader understood. The Empire will send more, Vader said instead of addressing the suggestion. Greater forces, perhaps even the Emperor himself. Let them come, Saitama replied with the confidence of someone who'd never met a threat he couldn't punch. I'm stuck in this galaxy for months anyway. Might as well make sure nobody else tries to kill me for existing. Vader made a decision then, one that would have consequences he couldn't yet foresee. Then we should ensure the Empire regrets this particular order. Come, the Executor is still loyal to me, and there are other places we can go, places the Emperor's reach is less certain. Are we starting a rebellion? Saitama asked. No, Vader corrected. We are simply choosing not to die on command. What happens after is uncertain. As they returned to their shuttle, leaving Malachor's cursed surface behind, neither of them noticed the small probe droid that had recorded everything. It transmitted its data across the galaxy, ensuring that both the Empire and the Rebel Alliance would soon know exactly what had transpired on the dead world. The game board was shifting, and Saitama, who just wanted to go home, had inadvertently become its most significant piece. The transmission reached Rebel Alliance headquarters within hours. Mon Mothma, Princess Leia, and the Command Council gathered around the holographic display, watching in stunned silence as Saitama dismantled an Imperial assault force and sent 3 Inquisitors flying like children's toys. Force preserve us, someone whispered when the recording ended. That's the being from the Karthak engagement, Leia confirmed. But this is different. He's not just surviving Imperial attacks, he's actively fighting back. Against Inquisitors, General Dodonna added, his tactical mind racing. The Emperor's personal Force user hunters, and he treated them like they were nothing. Mon Mothma steepled her fingers, her expression grave. The political implications are significant. Lord Vader has apparently broken with the Emperor over this being. If the Empire's enforcer has turned against Palpatine, then the war just changed completely, Leia finished. She studied the frozen image of Saitama catching a lightsaber with his bare hand. We need to contact him, find out his intentions. If Vader has recruited him... Vader doesn't strike me as having recruited anyone, an intelligence officer interrupted. Look at the body language. The anomaly moves independently, makes his own decisions. Vader follows his lead, not the other way around. Which means he's not loyal to the Empire, Dodonna concluded. Mothma, if we could bring him to our side... We can't think like that, Leia cut in sharply. This being isn't a weapon to be aimed. He saved our transports at Karthak without asking what faction we represented. He helped people because they needed help, she paused. That kind of moral clarity could be an ally, or it could be unpredictable in ways we can't afford. Can we afford not to try? Mon Mothma asked. The Emperor just attempted to eliminate both Vader and this Saitama. That makes them targets of the Empire, just like us. The enemy of my enemy, someone quoted, is not necessarily my friend, Leia finished, but might be willing to talk. I'll make contact, quietly. If Vader is protecting him, I have ways of reaching Vader's attention. The Council dispersed with new urgency. The galactic civil war had been a grinding stalemate for years. The Empire controlled most systems, but the rebellion survived through mobility and popular support. The introduction of a being who could fight Inquisitors barehanded changed calculations that military strategists had considered fixed. Across the galaxy, in his throne room on Imperial Center, Emperor Palpatine received the same transmission. His reaction was less measured. Lightning erupted from his fingertips, destroying the holographic projector. Imperial officers scattered, none wanting to be near their emperor when his rage manifested physically. The dark side swirled through the chamber like a storm, pressing against reality itself. "Lord Vader betrays me," Palpatine hissed, his voice carrying venom that made even hardened soldiers tremble. "After everything I have given him, power, purpose, a reason to exist, he chooses this anomaly over his master." Grand Moff Tarkin, one of the few beings who could stand in Palpatine's presence during such fury, spoke carefully. "The reports suggest Lord Vader's position is complicated, my Emperor. He may be attempting to—" "He defied my direct order," Palpatine's yellow eyes blazed. "I commanded the anomaly's destruction. Vader instead chose to preserve it. That is treason. That is betrayal." The Emperor's voice dropped to something colder and more dangerous. "Assemble the Imperial fleet, every Star Destroyer within 3 sectors. I want the Executor found and destroyed. Vader can watch his precious ship burn before I kill him myself. And the anomaly? If our weapons cannot kill it, then we will contain it, trap it, bury it beneath a planet if necessary. Nothing is unkillable, Grand Moff. Everything has a breaking point." Palpatine's withered hands clenched. "I will find his, and I will break him slowly." Orders transmitted across the holonet. The Imperial war machine, temporarily distracted from hunting rebels, turned its full attention to a new target, a rogue superstar destroyer and the 2 beings aboard it who'd defied the Emperor's will. Aboard the Executor, Vader stood on the bridge watching hyperspace stream past. Behind him, his command crew worked with nervous efficiency. They'd all heard what happened on Malachor. They knew that continuing to serve Lord Vader meant becoming enemies of the Empire they'd sworn to serve. Yet none had deserted. Some stayed out of loyalty to Vader. Others recognized that the Emperor's paranoia had finally extended to destroying his own greatest enforcer, which meant no one was safe. And a few simply found the alternative, serving an emperor who'd send them to die attacking an invincible being, less appealing than whatever came next. Saitama emerged from the ship's gym, where he'd been testing the exercise equipment. Most of it had broken under what he considered light use. He approached Vader, eating a protein bar that the quartermaster had finally located. "So," Saitama said, around a mouthful of compressed nutrients, "what's the plan? We just fly around space until the dimensional rift heals itself?" "No," Vader replied. "The Emperor will pursue us. He cannot allow this defiance to stand unpunished. We need allies, resources, a place to stand where Imperial fleets cannot simply overwhelm us through numbers." "You mean like those rebel people?" Vader's respirator breathed steadily. The suggestion had been inevitable, yet hearing it stated so plainly still carried weight. Ally with the rebellion, fight against the Empire he'd helped build, stand against everything Darth Vader represented. "The rebellion is weak," Vader said finally. "Scattered cells with inadequate resources and inconsistent leadership. They survive through guerrilla tactics, not military strength." "But they're fighting your evil empire," Saitama pointed out. And you just became enemies with your evil empire, so now you're on the same side, kind of. It is not that simple. It seems pretty simple to me, Saitama interrupted. Bad Emperor tried to kill both of us. Rebels fight Bad Emperor. We don't want to die. So we work with rebels until either the Emperor gives up or I go home. Then you can figure out what you want to do. The logic was childlike in its directness. Yet Vader couldn't actually argue with it. Palpatine had attempted to eliminate them both. The rebellion fought Palpatine. Therefore, temporary alliance made tactical sense. What Vader didn't say was that nothing involving the Emperor was ever temporary. Palpatine had spent decades consolidating power, eliminating rivals, and ensuring his dominance. He would not simply give up on destroying threats to his rule. This conflict would end with the Emperor's death or theirs. If we contact the rebellion, Vader said slowly, they will not trust us. I am responsible for hunting and killing their people for years. My reputation among them is not favorable. Then I'll talk to them, Saitama offered. I don't have a reputation here. I'm just a guy who wants to go home and doesn't want people shooting at him. Before Vader could respond, the ship's communications officer called out, Lord Vader, we're receiving a transmission on an encrypted rebel frequency. They're asking to speak with... He paused, checking his display. With Saitama specifically, by name. Vader and Saitama exchanged looks, or would have if Vader's mask allowed such expressions. Put it through, Vader commanded. The bridge's holographic display activated, showing a young woman in white robes, her hair styled in an elaborate configuration. Princess Leia Organa, though Vader didn't immediately recognize the connection to Padme, to the life he'd lost decades ago. This is Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan, representing the Alliance to restore the Republic, she said with practiced diplomatic composure. I am trying to reach the individual known as Saitama. That's me, Saitama said, stepping into the hologram's view. Hi, Leia blinked at the casualness. You're the one who helped our transports at Carthak and fought Imperial Inquisitors on Malachor. Yeah, the transport people looked like they needed help, and the Inquisitor guys attacked me first. We've been monitoring Imperial communications, Leia continued, her political training keeping her focused despite the surreal conversation. The Emperor has issued kill orders for both you and Lord Vader. You're now targets of the entire Imperial military. I noticed, Saitama replied. That's why we're flying around in space instead of being on that big city planet. Then you might be interested in meeting with Rebellion leadership. We have a common enemy now. Perhaps we can help each other. Vader moved into the hologram's view, and Leia's composure finally cracked slightly. Having Lord Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the Emperor's enforcer, the being who'd terrorized the rebellion for years, appear on a communication with the anomaly was deeply unsettling. Princess, Vader acknowledged, your transmission was anticipated. However, you must understand that any alliance would be complicated by my presence. That's an understatement, Leia replied coldly. You've personally destroyed rebel cells, captured our people, enforced the Empire's tyranny across the galaxy. Why would we trust anything you're involved with? You wouldn't, Vader said simply, which is why Saitama would negotiate. I am merely providing transportation and tactical support. Leia's eyes moved between the bald figure in the yellow costume and the Dark Lord in black armor. The galaxy had become very strange very quickly. There's a secure location in the Quayle sector. If you're willing to meet, I can arrange safe passage. But Lord Vader, her voice hardened, you will come unarmed and submit to Alliance security protocols. No negotiation on that point. Agreed, Vader said before Saitama could respond. The concession shocked everyone on the bridge. Lord Vader, Submitting to rebel security? Accepting disarmament? It was unthinkable. But Vader understood what his subordinates didn't. His weapons were irrelevant with Saitama present. Lightsaber or not, force powers or not, he was no longer the most dangerous being in the room. That distinction belonged to the simple hero who just wanted to go home. "We'll transmit coordinates," Leia said, still processing Vader's compliance. "The Alliance leadership will want to meet you both. This doesn't mean we're allies yet, just talking." "That's fine," Saitama said. "Talking is better than shooting. We can figure things out from there." The transmission ended. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence, processing what had just occurred. They were going to meet with the rebellion, with Lord Vader's implicit approval, to potentially ally with the people they'd been hunting for years. "Set course for the Quelai sector," Vader ordered. "Standard approach, no weapons active. We are guests, not invaders." As the crew scrambled to comply, Vader turned to Saitama. "You comprehend that this meeting could be a trap? The rebellion has every reason to want me captured or dead. If it's a trap, I'll handle it," Saitama replied with the confidence of someone who'd walked through every threat the galaxy had thrown at him. "Besides, you said they're weak and scattered. They need help more than we do. I think they'll actually talk." Vader hoped the assessment was correct, because the alternative, walking into an Alliance ambush, would force Saitama to fight the only people actively opposing Palpatine's tyranny. And Vader was beginning to recognize that the galaxy's best chance of defeating the Emperor might rest on keeping Saitama pointed in the right direction. Even if that meant Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, was now seeking alliance with the rebellion he'd spent years trying to destroy. The galaxy had become very complicated indeed. The rebel base on Quelli was hidden beneath layers of forest canopy and sensor-blocking shields. The Executor had parked itself in high orbit, too large to approach directly without triggering every alarm system the Alliance possessed. Instead, Vader and Saitama descended in a small Lambda-class shuttle, its weapon systems powered down, and its IFF transponder broadcasting rebel codes that Princess Leia had transmitted. Saitama pressed his face against the viewport, watching the green world grow closer. "This planet looks nicer than the last one. Less death and destruction." "Quelli is far from major hyperspace lanes," Vader explained, his lightsaber conspicuously absent from his belt per the agreement. "The rebellion uses such worlds to hide their operations, remote, defensible. Easy to evacuate if discovered. They have to run a lot, constantly. The Empire's resources vastly exceed theirs. They survive through mobility and secrecy." The shuttle landed in a clearing where rebel soldiers waited, weapons ready but not raised. They wore mismatched armor and carried equipment that looked cobbled together from multiple sources, a stark contrast to the Imperial military's uniformity. As Vader descended the boarding ramp, every weapon snapped up, targeting him specifically. "Hold fire," a voice commanded. Princess Leia emerged from the group, flanked by rebel honor guards. "Lord Vader has accepted our terms. He is unarmed and here to talk." "He's never unarmed," a soldier muttered. "He uses the Force." "And if he attacks, Saitama will stop him," Leia said firmly, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty about whether anyone could actually stop Vader if he chose violence. Saitama followed Vader down the ramp, looking around with interest. "Nice trees. Do you guys live in a forest base? That seems inconvenient for groceries." Several soldiers exchanged bewildered looks. This was the being who'd destroyed 3 Inquisitors, who'd survived everything the Empire threw at him. He seemed more interested in their supply logistics than the heavily armed reception committee. "We have supply lines," Leia replied, her diplomatic training allowing her to engage with absurdity without missing a beat. "This way, please. The Command Council is waiting." They walked through the forest base, passing soldiers who stopped their duties to stare at the impossible sight. Lord Vader, the Empire's greatest enforcer, walking voluntarily into a rebel stronghold. Whispers followed them, ranging from disbelief to anger to cautious hope. The command center was built into a natural cave system, its walls lined with holographic displays and communication equipment. Mon Mothma, General Dodonna, Admiral Akbar, and several other council members stood waiting. The tension in the chamber was palpable, years of hunted fear and righteous anger directed at the figure in black armor now standing before them. Lord Vader, Mon Mothma said, her voice carrying ice despite her controlled expression. You understand that your presence here tests every principle we hold dear. Many in this room have lost friends, family, entire cells to your hunts. I understand, Vader replied. His respirator was the only sound for a long moment. I do not ask for forgiveness. I seek only a temporary alliance against a common enemy. The Emperor, General Dodonna said, who has apparently decided you're a liability. Palpatine cannot allow defiance to exist. My continued existence, and Saitama's, represents a threat to his absolute control. Therefore, he will commit unlimited resources to our elimination. And you expect us to protect you? Someone said with barely controlled fury. After everything you've done? No, Vader said flatly. I expect you to recognize an opportunity. The Emperor's attention has turned toward me. His fleets are hunting the Executor. His Inquisitors are being redeployed to eliminate a single target. That means his focus is not on your scattered cells. The tactical implications settled over the room. Mon Mothma's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting we use you as a distraction. I am suggesting we use each other, Vader corrected. The rebellion gains breathing room while the Empire hunts me. I gain potential allies and intelligence on Imperial fleet movements. And Saitama, he gestured to the hero who was examining a holographic star chart with curiosity, gains time to find a way home without constant Imperial harassment. What about when he does go home? Leia asked. When this dimensional rift heals and Saitama returns to his universe? You'll still be here, Vader. Still the Emperor's former apprentice. What then? Vader was silent for a long moment. The question cut to the core of what he'd been avoiding since Malachor. What did he become when this temporary alliance ended? Return to the Empire? Impossible. Palpatine would never forgive betrayal. Join the rebellion permanently? He was Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. His past couldn't be washed away by changing sides. I don't know, Vader admitted, and the honesty in those words shocked everyone present. Lord Vader, admitting uncertainty, admitting weakness. Saitama spoke up from where he'd been studying the star chart. You could just quit being a Sith Lord. Do something else. People change careers all the time. It is not that simple. Sure it is, Saitama interrupted, turning to face the room. You worked for a bad guy doing bad things. Now you don't want to work for the bad guy anymore because he tried to kill you. So stop working for him. Help these people fight him instead. Then when it's done, figure out what you want to do next. Admiral Akbar's species didn't do facial expressions, but his body language conveyed skepticism. You propose Lord Vader simply joins the rebellion. After years of hunting us? Why not? Saitama asked. He knows all your enemies' secrets, right? Where their ships are, how they fight, what their plans are. That seems useful for people trying to beat them. He also knows our secrets now, someone pointed out. Our base locations, our retry see-continue command structure, which he could betray if the Emperor offers him amnesty, Leia finished. How do we trust him? You don't, Vader said. Trust must be earned. I offer only what I stated. temporary alliance against Palpatine, my knowledge of Imperial operations, and, he paused, the acknowledgement that the Emperor's rule has become exactly what the Jedi Council feared. Absolute power corrupting absolutely. The chamber fell silent. Hearing Vader acknowledge that the Jedi, the order he'd helped destroy, had been right carried weight that tactical agreements couldn't match. It was an admission that everything he'd served was corrupt. Everything he'd done in the Empire's name was wrong. Mon Mothma studied Vader for a long moment, then turned her attention to Saitama. And you? What do you want from this alliance? I just want to go home, Saitama said simply. These Sith holocron things said it'll take months for the dimensional rift to heal naturally. Until then, I'm stuck here. I'd prefer if people stopped trying to kill me for existing. If helping you guys fight the evil Emperor accomplishes that, okay? You don't care about our cause, Dodonna asked. Freedom from tyranny, restoring the Republic. I care about people not getting hurt, Saitama replied. Back home, I'm a hero. That means protecting people from threats. Your Emperor seems like a threat. He tried to kill me just because I made his general nervous. That's pretty villainous. He paused. Plus, you guys helped those transport ships I saved. That seemed like a good thing to do. So you're probably the good guys in this war. The assessment was childlike in its directness, yet it cut through all the political complexity. Saitama had evaluated the conflict's morality by the simplest metric possible: who was trying to kill him, and who was trying to help people. By that standard, the Empire failed and the rebellion succeeded. We need to discuss this, Mon Mothma said finally. Lord Vader, Saitama, please wait outside while the Council deliberates. Vader and Saitama left the command center, escorted by nervous guards who kept their weapons ready but didn't know what they'd do if either visitor decided to attack. They were led to a waiting area carved into the cave system, furnished with simple chairs and a viewport showing the forest outside. They're going to say yes, Saitama observed, sitting down. They need help, too much to turn us away. Perhaps, Vader replied, remaining standing. But even if they agree, this alliance will be fragile. The rebellion's people have suffered under Imperial rule. Many will never accept my presence regardless of strategic value. Then you'll have to prove you're serious about helping them. And if I am not? Vader asked. If I betray them once I have what I need? Saitama looked up at the Dark Lord with his usual bland expression. Then I'll stop you. I'm not picking sides in your galactic war. I'm just trying to get home and help people until then. If you start hurting people, that makes you the same as those Inquisitor guys. And you saw how that turned out. The threat was delivered without hostility or anger. Just simple fact. If Vader proved to be a villain, Saitama would treat him like any other villain. The reminder of his limitations, his complete inability to harm Saitama, combined with Saitama's casual ability to defeat him, was humbling in ways the Force had never been. Vader had spent decades as the most feared being in the galaxy, and now he stood in a rebel base, his future dependent on convincing people he'd terrorized to trust him, while being supervised by someone who could end him with a casual punch. The Emperor's plan to control Saitama had backfired spectacularly, and Vader was beginning to realize that this strange being from another universe might accomplish what decades of rebel fighting hadn't, forcing Darth Vader to confront what he'd become and choose a different path. Inside the command center, the debate raged. Absolute madness, one commander argued. We're seriously considering allying with the butcher who destroyed the Jedi Temple, who personally hunted our people. We're considering accepting help against a greater threat, Mon Mothma countered. Our principles are important, but survival is prerequisite to everything else. What about after? Leia asked. Assume we work together, we damage the Empire, maybe even defeat the Emperor. What do we do with Vader then? Put him on trial? Execute him? Offer amnesty? One problem at a time, Admiral Akbar suggested. The immediate question, does accepting this alliance provide tactical advantage sufficient to outweigh the moral complications? Yes, General Dodonna said firmly. Vader knows Imperial strategy, fleet positions, command structures, and security protocols. That intelligence alone could save thousands of lives. Add Saitama's combat capabilities, which apparently include destroying Inquisitors bare-handed, and we have an opportunity that won't come again. Unless it's a trap, someone muttered. Vader lets us think he's defected. We lower our guard, and the Emperor springs whatever he's actually planning. To what end? Mon Mothma asked. The Emperor already knows we're scattered and weak. He doesn't need elaborate plans to fight us. He has unlimited resources and military superiority. This situation only makes sense if it's genuine. Vader defied orders, the Emperor responded with elimination, and now Vader needs allies. The debate continued for another 20 minutes before Mon Mothma called for a vote. When the tally concluded, the result was narrow but decisive. The Alliance would accept the temporary alliance with strict conditions and constant monitoring. They returned to the waiting area to find Saitama eating a ration bar that someone had given him, while Vader stood motionless by the viewport. Both turned as the council entered. We've reached a decision, Mon Mothma announced. The Alliance will accept a temporary partnership, conditional on the following terms. First, Lord Vader will provide comprehensive intelligence on Imperial operations. Second, both of you will submit to Alliance oversight, your movements monitored, your actions supervised. Third, this arrangement exists only until either Saitama returns to his universe or the Emperor is defeated. Afterward, all agreements are void and will be renegotiated. Acceptable, Vader said. Great, Saitama added. So does this mean people will stop shooting at me? The Empire will certainly continue trying, Leia said with grim humor. But you'll have allies now. That's something. Okay, Saitama stood up, brushing crumbs off his costume. What do we do first? General Dodonna stepped forward, a tactical hologram activating above his data pad. First, we need to move your Star Destroyer. The Executor is too distinctive. Every Imperial asset in the galaxy is looking for it. We have facilities that can help with temporary modifications, enough to make it less immediately recognizable. After that, Mon Mothma continued, we begin coordinated operations. The Emperor's attention is focused on finding you. We'll use that distraction to strike at vulnerable Imperial assets, supply depots, communication relays, recruitment centers. Nothing that triggers overwhelming response, but enough to remind the galaxy that the rebellion still fights. And if we encounter Imperial forces, Vader asked. Then Saitama demonstrates why the Emperor was right to fear him, Leia said. But carefully, we're not trying to start a war we can't win. We're trying to survive until we can. Saitama listened to the planning with his characteristic blank expression. Back home, the Hero Association handled this kind of strategic thinking. He just showed up when monsters appeared and punched them. This galaxy's conflicts were messier. No clear monsters, just people fighting people over politics and power. But the rebellion was trying to stop the evil Emperor from hurting people. That seemed straightforward enough. And if helping them meant fewer people shooting at him while he waited to go home, that was fine. Okay, Saitama said when the planning session concluded. I'll help, but I'm not going to kill anyone unless they're actually trying to kill innocents. Soldiers doing their jobs don't count. Even soldiers who are trying to kill you, someone asked skeptically. Especially them, Saitama replied. They're scared and following orders. That doesn't make them monsters. It makes them people stuck in a bad situation. The philosophy, distinguishing between soldiers and actual villains, was far more nuanced than anyone expected from the being who'd casually destroyed Inquisitors. It suggested that Saitama's power came with a moral framework that he adhered to regardless of personal convenience. We can work with that, Mon Mothma decided. The rebellion doesn't celebrate killing. We fight because we must, not because we enjoy it. As the meeting dispersed and preparations began for the unlikely alliance, Vader found himself standing alone with Saitama under Queli's forest canopy. Stars were beginning to appear in the twilight sky, and somewhere up there, the Executor waited to be transformed into something it had never been, a vessel serving the rebellion. "You could have returned to your ship," Vader said. "Let me face this alliance alone." "Why stay?" Saitama shrugged. "You're helping me find a way home, and you haven't been a villain since we started working together. Seems like you're trying to be better than you were." He paused. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't backslide. Evil Empire habits probably take time to break." Vader's respirator breathed in the forest air. The being beside him had no force sensitivity, no political understanding, no strategic genius. He was simply a hero who punched monsters and helped people. Yet somehow that simplicity had accomplished what years of rebel fighting hadn't, made Darth Vader question everything he'd become and choose a different path. "The Emperor will not forgive this," Vader said quietly. "He will hunt us both until we're dead, or he is." "Then we better make sure he loses," Saitama replied. "I've fought universe-destroying monsters before. One evil space emperor can't be that much worse." Vader hoped that confidence was justified, because the coming war wasn't against monsters or inquisitors or even imperial armies. It was against the most powerful dark side user in galactic history, who'd spent decades consolidating absolute power and eliminating every threat to his rule. But they had something Palpatine hadn't accounted for, someone who operated completely outside the rules of power the Emperor understood, someone who couldn't be corrupted, couldn't be killed, and couldn't be controlled. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when an immovable object decided it didn't like the direction the unstoppable force was pushing. The Emperor's response came swiftly and with overwhelming force. Within a week of the rebellion's alliance with Vader and Saitama, Imperial fleets converged on suspected rebel strongholds across the galaxy. Palpatine wasn't just hunting his former apprentice, he was sending a message that defiance would be met with total annihilation. The modified Executor, now bearing false designation markings and sensor-dampening modifications, moved between systems with rebel strike teams. Vader provided intelligence on vulnerable Imperial targets, and Saitama's presence turned what should have been desperate raids into overwhelming victories. Stormtroopers surrendered when they saw the being who'd fought Inquisitors casually deflecting blaster fire. Star Destroyer commanders retreated rather than face an opponent who could operate in hard vacuum and punch through hull plating. But success attracted attention, and attention attracted exactly what the rebellion feared most. Saitama was in the Executor's mess hall, trying to teach some young rebel recruits about proper nutrition when the alarms blared. He abandoned his lecture about vegetables and jogged to the bridge, where Vader stood studying tactical displays with uncharacteristic tension. "What's wrong?" Saitama asked. "The Emperor has arrived," Vader said, his respirator breathing rapidly. His personal fleet just emerged from hyperspace. 200 vessels, including his flagship. He's brought enough firepower to destroy a planet. On the view screen, the Imperial Armada filled space, a wall of star destroyers, dreadnoughts, and support craft surrounding a massive vessel at the center. The Emperor's flagship, the Eclipse, dwarfed even the Executor, bristling with weapons and dark side energy that made sensitive equipment throughout the rebel vessel malfunction. That's a lot of ships, Saitama observed. Is he overcompensating for something? Despite the tension, several bridge officers suppressed nervous laughter. Only Saitama would look at the galaxy's most powerful military force and make jokes about inadequacy. He's brought enough force to ensure victory, Vader corrected, and he's transmitting on open frequencies. The main view screen flickered, and Emperor Palpatine's withered face appeared. His yellow eyes blazed with dark side energy, and his smile was predatory. Behind him, red-robed Imperial guards stood motionless, their force pikes gleaming. Lord Vader, Palpatine said, his voice carrying false warmth that everyone recognized as mockery. My apprentice, my greatest creation, and you betray me for this? The Emperor's gaze shifted to Saitama, a dimensional anomaly, a being with power but no understanding of its use, no vision, no purpose beyond returning to his insignificant life. I have a purpose, Saitama replied calmly. Help people, stop villains, your basic hero stuff. Hero, Palpatine repeated the word like it was poisonous. The galaxy has no need for heroes. It needs order, strength, unity through power. You could have been a weapon that forged an empire lasting 10,000 years. Instead, you allied with failures and traitors. They're not failures, Saitama said. They're people fighting against your evil empire. That seems pretty heroic to me. The Emperor's smile vanished. Then you will die with them. Lord Vader, I give you one final chance. Return to my service. Help me destroy this anomaly, and I will forgive your temporary insanity. Vader stood silent for a long moment. His respirator was the only sound on the bridge. Every person present knew this was the moment, the choice that would define everything that followed. Return to the Emperor and save himself, or commit fully to this impossible alliance. No, Vader said finally. I have seen what your empire becomes, Master. Endless tyranny enforced through fear. That is not order. That is oppression. Then you have chosen death. Palpatine's eyes narrowed. All vessels, open fire. Destroy the traitor and everything near him. The transmission ended. A heartbeat later, space erupted with turbolaser fire. The Imperial Armada unleashed everything simultaneously, hundreds of Star Destroyers firing coordinated barrages, fighter squadrons swarming forward, and the Eclipse itself adding weapons capable of cracking planetary shields to the assault. The Executor shuddered under impacts, its shields flaring and beginning to fail under the sustained bombardment. All power to forward shields, the tactical officer screamed. Return fire. Launch all fighters. But it was futile, and everyone knew it. The Executor was powerful, but 200 vessels against one meant inevitable destruction. Rebel crews scrambled to their duty stations, some praying to gods they'd never believed in, others simply holding on to whatever was near as the ship began breaking apart. We need to evacuate, Mon Mothma said urgently from her position on the bridge. She'd insisted on being present for this operation, and now regretted that choice. Get the crew to escape pods. No time, Vader stated flatly, watching shields collapse on his displays. At this bombardment rate, hull integrity will fail in 30 seconds. The Emperor is ensuring no survivors. Saitama watched the chaos for a moment, then walked toward the hangar bay. Where are you going? Vader called after him. To stop them from blowing up the ship, Saitama replied, as if it were obvious. Someone needs to deal with those Star Destroyers. There are 200, Vader began, then stopped. Because what were 200 Star Destroyers to someone who'd casually destroyed vessels by touching them? Be careful. Saitama paused at the bridge entrance, looking back with his characteristic blank expression. I'm always careful. It's just that nothing ever hurts me, so people don't notice. He vanished into the corridor, running toward the hangar bay. Behind him, the Executor continued taking catastrophic damage, whole sections venting to space as the Emperor's fleet tore it apart. Vader turned back to his displays, then made a decision. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. The Emperor wants survivors to execute publicly. Don't give him the satisfaction. "What about you, Lord Vader?" Leia asked, having appeared on the bridge through a side entrance. "I will ensure the evacuation completes," Vader replied, "and I will bear witness to what comes next." Saitama launched himself from the Executor's hangar bay without a ship, without a suit, without anything except his hero costume and his absolute confidence. Space's vacuum meant nothing to him. The absolute zero temperature was just cold. The radiation from nearby stars was no more threatening than sunlight on Earth. He oriented himself toward the nearest Star Destroyer and simply jumped. The distances in space combat were immense, kilometers between vessels, but Saitama crossed them in seconds. He landed on the Star Destroyer's hull with enough force to buckle the armor plating beneath his feet. Alarms blared throughout the vessel as crew members tried to understand what had just impacted their ship at impossible velocity. Saitama looked around at the massive warship beneath his feet. "Okay, how do I stop this thing without killing anyone?" He noticed the massive engines at the Star Destroyer's rear, glowing with contained power. Engines seemed important. If he disabled those, the ship couldn't fly or shoot properly, right? That seemed like a reasonable approach. Saitama walked along the hull toward the engines, his boots somehow finding purchase on the smooth surface despite zero gravity. When he reached the engine section, he examined the massive reactor outputs for a moment, then simply punched into the hull plating. His fist went through meters-thick durasteel like paper. He grabbed the edges of the hole and pulled, tearing open the Star Destroyer's hull to expose the engine mechanisms inside. Then he reached in and yanked out a piece of machinery that looked important. He couldn't actually tell what it was, but it had lots of glowing parts, so it probably mattered. The Star Destroyer's engines died immediately. The vessel went dark, drifting powerlessly as its reactor shut down from catastrophic damage. Emergency systems kicked in, sealing bulkheads and activating life support, but the warship was effectively neutralized. One down, 199 to go. Saitama jumped to the next Star Destroyer, then the next, moving through the Imperial fleet like a demolition worker with unlimited energy. Each vessel he touched went dark, its engines torn out or its power systems disabled. He was careful to avoid crew sections. He could hear people through the hull plating, and he didn't want to accidentally hurt anyone by ripping through inhabited areas. Aboard the Eclipse, Emperor Palpatine watched the tactical displays with growing disbelief. One after another, his Star Destroyers went dark. Not destroyed, disabled, rendered powerless but intact. And sensor data showed a single human-sized object moving between them at speeds that made hyperspace calculations look slow. "Impossible," Palpatine hissed. "No being possesses such power without the Force." "My Emperor," an officer ventured nervously, "should we recall the fleet, whatever that thing is?" "No!" Palpatine's rage exploded, lightning arcing from his fingertips to strike the unfortunate officer. The man fell, smoking and dead, and everyone else on the bridge took a step back. "I will not retreat from this insect. All vessels, focus fire on the anomaly. Ignore the Executor. Destroy him." The remaining Star Destroyers that still had power reoriented their weapons, tracking Saitama as he moved between disabled vessels. They fired everything: turbo lasers, ion cannons, missile barrages, all converging on the small figure floating in space. Saitama noticed the incoming fire and stopped his demolition work to watch the light show approach. The barrage hit him like a wall of energy, explosions blooming across his position, enough firepower to vaporize asteroids and incinerate cities. When the smoke cleared, Saitama floated there, unchanged, looking slightly annoyed. "That's getting really old," he said to no one, his words somehow transmitting across calm frequencies despite the vacuum. "Why does everyone think more shooting will work when regular shooting doesn't?" He launched himself toward the eclipse, crossing the distance between it and the disabled star destroyers in a single bound. The massive flagship loomed before him, and he could feel something different about it, a wrongness. Like the Sith temple on Malachor, but concentrated and directed. Saitama landed on the eclipse's hull and immediately felt the dark side trying to affect him. It pressed against his mind, whispering promises of power, showing visions of destruction, attempting to corrupt his will. On anyone else, the concentrated dark side energy channeled through the Emperor's flagship would have driven them insane or turned them into willing servants. Saitama experienced it as a mild headache. "This ship feels gross," he muttered, walking toward what he assumed was the bridge section. "Like someone left food rotting in here." Inside the bridge, Palpatine felt Saitama's approach, and for the first time in decades experienced something approaching fear. The anomaly was walking on his flagship. The dark side couldn't touch him. The Force couldn't stop him. And he was coming directly toward the Emperor's location. "Guards," Palpatine commanded, "activate all defense systems. Release the dark side experiments. Everything." Hatches opened across the eclipse's hull, releasing horrors that the Emperor had been perfecting for years. Dark side abominations, creatures twisted by Sith alchemy into killing machines, Force-sensitive assassins driven insane by torture and training, even droids powered by captured Force energy. They swarmed toward Saitama, dozens of them, each capable of killing Jedi Masters. Saitama stopped walking as the creatures approached. "Oh, these are actual monsters. Finally." The first abomination lunged, its claws extended and dripping with alchemical poison that could kill on contact. Saitama casually backhanded it, and the creature flew off the eclipse's hull into deep space, tumbling end over end. The second tried a coordinated attack with 3 others. Saitama grabbed one by the leg and used it to bat the others away like he was swinging a very ugly club. Within 30 seconds, every dark side creation the Emperor had unleashed was either floating disabled in space or had fled back into the ship's interior. Saitama resumed his walk toward the bridge, leaving destruction in his wake. Aboard the Executor, which had stopped taking fire as the Imperial fleet focused on Saitama, Vader watched through external sensors. The rebel crews had stopped evacuating, drawn to view screens showing the impossible battle. Saitama was fighting the Emperor's entire fleet single-handedly and winning. "He's going to reach Palpatine," Vader said quietly. "Will he kill him?" Leia asked. "I don't know." And Vader genuinely didn't. Saitama had shown restraint against soldiers, mercy toward defeated enemies. But Palpatine was different, an active threat, a being whose very existence caused suffering across the galaxy. Would Saitama's hero code extend to sparing someone truly evil? Saitama found the eclipse's bridge by following the feeling of wrongness to its source. He punched through the armored blast door, which was designed to withstand ship-to-ship weapons, and stepped inside. Emperor Palpatine stood in the center of the command deck, his Imperial guards forming a protective circle. The old man's yellow eyes blazed with fury and something that might have been desperation. "So," Palpatine said, his voice dripping with venom, "the anomaly finally faces me. Do you have any idea who I am? What I've accomplished? I brought order to a chaotic galaxy. I ended the corrupt republic. I created an empire that will last forever." "You're an evil emperor who tried to kill me for existing," Saitama replied simply. "And you hurt a lot of people building your empire. That makes you a villain." "Villain?" Palpatine's rage exploded. I am power. I am destiny. I am... Saitama punched him. Not a serious punch. Not even a particularly hard punch by his standards. Just enough to knock the Emperor off his feet and send him sliding across the deck, his robes tangling around him. The Imperial Guards attacked instantly, their force pikes crackling with energy. Saitama dodged casually, his hands still in his pockets, as the elite warriors tried desperately to land a hit. Their weapons shattered against his body when they finally connected. Their training, perfected over decades, meant nothing against someone who operated beyond the rules they understood. Palpatine struggled to his feet, lightning already crackling around his fingers. You dare strike the Emperor? You tried to blow up my ride, Saitama pointed out, and you've been pretty rude this whole time, calling people insects and failures. That's villain behavior. I am the Senate. I am the Force itself. Palpatine unleashed everything, lightning that had destroyed Jedi Masters, dark side energy that had corrupted worlds, power accumulated over decades of studying the Sith arts. It struck Saitama in a blinding cascade, filling the bridge with energy that made consoles explode and bulkheads groan. Saitama stood in the center of the maelstrom, his expression showing mild discomfort. This tingles, he observed, like a really strong static shock. The lightning intensified, Palpatine pouring his rage and power into killing this impossible being. But nothing happened. The anomaly just stood there, not even particularly bothered, waiting for the Emperor to finish. Finally, Palpatine's strength gave out. The lightning stopped. The Emperor stood gasping, his withered form trembling with exhaustion. For the first time in his long life, he'd encountered something he couldn't defeat, couldn't manipulate, couldn't control. Saitama walked forward, and every Imperial Guard scrambled out of his way, their courage finally breaking. He stopped in front of Palpatine, looking down at the withered Sith Lord. You should surrender, Saitama said. Your fleet is disabled. Your guards can't stop me. Your lightning doesn't work. This is over. Palpatine's yellow eyes blazed with hatred. Never. I will not surrender to... Saitama flicked him on the forehead. The Emperor flew backward, crashing into his throne with enough force to crack the stone. He slumped there, dazed, his grand plans and unlimited power meaning nothing against someone who'd broken every limit reality imposed. Surrendering is better than what happens if you keep fighting, Saitama said calmly. Trust me on that. For a long moment, silence filled the bridge. Then, quietly, Emperor Palpatine, Dark Lord of the Sith, Master Manipulator, Architect of the Galactic Empire, spoke a word he'd never said in his entire life. I yield. The galaxy had changed, and Saitama, who just wanted to go home, had accidentally won the war. The Emperor's surrender rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave through hyperspace. Imperial forces, receiving word that Palpatine himself had been defeated by the anomaly working with the rebellion, faced an impossible choice. Continue fighting a war their leader had lost, or stand down. Across thousands of systems, Star Destroyers powered down weapons. Governors opened negotiations with rebel cells. The monolithic empire that had ruled through fear for decades began fracturing as officers and Moffs scrambled to either pledge loyalty to the new republic or carve out their own territories. Saitama stood on the Executor's Bridge 3 months later, watching through the viewport as construction crews worked on the new Senate building on Coruscant. The planet had been liberated with surprisingly little bloodshed. Most Imperial forces had simply surrendered once word spread that the Emperor was imprisoned and Lord Vader had defected. The galaxy was transitioning from dictatorship to democracy again, though everyone acknowledged the process would take years. The New Republic Senate wants to honor you, Mon Mothma said, approaching with a data pad full of ceremony proposals. She'd been elected chancellor in free elections, and the weight of rebuilding an entire government showed in her tired eyes. Medals, titles, citizenship, they're proposing naming a system after you. That's nice, but unnecessary, Saitama replied. I didn't really do anything special, just stopped a villain from hurting people. You defeated the Emperor single-handedly, disabled 200 Star Destroyers without killing anyone, and fundamentally changed galactic history, Leia pointed out. She'd taken on the role of mediating between Saitama and the various governments trying to honor him. That seems fairly special. It was just one punch, Saitama said with his characteristic bland expression. Okay, technically one punch and one forehead flick, but still, pretty standard hero work. Vader entered the bridge, his presence still causing some rebel, now New Republic, personnel to tense reflexively. He'd been working with war crimes tribunals, providing testimony about Imperial operations and accepting responsibility for his actions. The process was complicated and painful, but he'd committed to it fully. The dimensional specialists have finished their analysis, Vader announced. The rift that brought you here has stabilized. They estimate it will fully seal within the week. Saitama's expression brightened slightly, the most emotion anyone had seen from him in weeks. So I can go home soon. Yes, the Jedi holocrons we recovered from Imperial vaults contained rituals that can facilitate your return. Master Skywalker has agreed to help perform them. Vader paused over the name, Luke Skywalker, his son, who'd emerged from hiding after the Emperor's fall and revealed his Force sensitivity to the New Republic. Their relationship was complicated, built on revelations neither had fully processed, but they were trying. That's great, Saitama actually smiled. I mean, it's been interesting here. Space battles, force powers, evil emperors, but I really miss Earth, and my apartment. And proper groceries. The Senate is preparing a monument to commemorate your assistance, Mon Mothma continued. A statue in Heroes Plaza. The hero from beyond, they're calling you. A statue seems like too much, Saitama protested. I was just trying to get home and avoid being shot at. You guys did most of the actual work rebuilding. You inspired people, Leia said gently. Showed them that tyranny could be defeated, that someone with incredible power could choose mercy over domination. That matters more than you realize. Saitama scratched his bald head, uncomfortable with the praise. Back on Earth, he was a B-class hero most people didn't know about. Here, he'd accidentally become a legend. It felt weird. Over the following days, preparations were made for Saitama's departure. The ritual required significant Force energy, which meant Luke, several rescued Jedi, and even Vader would need to participate. The Dimensional Rift's location had been pinpointed, ironically near Tatooine, where Saitama had first arrived. The night before the ritual, Saitama found Vader standing on an observation deck, staring at Coruscant's cityscape. The Dark Lord had removed his helmet, something he rarely did, revealing the scarred face beneath. Anakin Skywalker's features, burned and damaged, but human. You didn't have to take off the mask, Saitama said, joining him at the viewport. I did, Vader replied quietly. For too long I hid behind it, used it as an excuse to become something monstrous. You showed me that power without purpose is meaningless, that strength should protect, not dominate. I just punched a villain who needed punching. You did more than that. Vader turned to face him fully. You gave me a choice I didn't think I had, a chance to be more than Darth Vader. I don't know if I can ever truly redeem what I've done, but I can try. That's something. Trying is what matters, Saitama agreed. Everyone makes mistakes, even really big ones like joining an evil empire and hunting innocent people, What matters is what you do after you realize you were wrong. They stood in silence for a moment, the former Sith Lord and the interdimensional hero, watching a galaxy slowly healing from decades of tyranny. "What will you do when you return home?" Vader asked. "Probably go grocery shopping," Saitama said. "Check if I still have an apartment. Get back to hero work. There's always monsters to fight and people to help." He paused. "What about you?" "Face justice. Help rebuild. Try to be a father to Luke, though I have no idea how." Vader's scarred face attempted something like a smile. "For the first time in decades, the future is uncertain. That should be terrifying. Instead, I find it hopeful." "Hope is good," Saitama agreed. "Your galaxy seems like it needs a lot of that right now." The ritual took place on Tatooine, in the desert where Saitama had first arrived. Luke Skywalker stood at the center of a circle of Force users, Jedi holocrons providing guidance for the ancient technique. Vader participated despite his connection to the dark side making the process difficult. He channeled his power carefully, focusing on the goal of opening a path home for someone who'd saved the galaxy. Saitama stood in the center of the circle, his grocery bag in hand. Mon Mothma had ensured it was filled with fresh vegetables, a parting gift. As energy swirled around him, the Force users chanted in ancient languages, and reality began bending. A rift appeared in the air, crackling with dimensional energy. Through it, Saitama could see his apartment, frozen in the moment he'd left. The grocery store was visible through his window, still having its sale on cabbage. "That's it," Saitama said excitedly. "That's home." "Then go," Luke said, strain evident in his voice as he maintained the ritual. "Before the rift collapses." Saitama turned back one last time, looking at the assembled group. Vader, Luke, Leia, Mon Mothma, even a few stormtroopers who'd defected and wanted to see the hero off. People from a galaxy far, far away who'd become something like friends. "Thanks for the help," Saitama said. "And good luck with your rebuilding. Try not to let another evil emperor take over." "We'll do our best," Leia replied, smiling despite tears in her eyes. "Thank you for everything, Saitama. The galaxy won't forget you." "May the Force be with you," Luke added, the traditional blessing carrying special weight. Saitama waved, then stepped through the rift. Reality folded around him, dimensions shifting, and he found himself standing in his apartment exactly where he'd left. The clock on his wall showed he'd been gone less than a second in Earth time, despite spending months in another universe. He looked down at his grocery bag, full of vegetables he didn't recognize but would probably taste fine. Then he looked around his small apartment, with its cheap furniture and manga collection and total lack of space battles or force powers. "Huh," Saitama said to his empty apartment. "That was weird." His phone buzzed. A notification from the Hero Association, monster sighting in City Q, B-class and above, heroes requested to respond. Saitama sighed, put his groceries in the refrigerator, and headed out. Just another day of being a hero. In a galaxy far, far away, the rift sealed completely. The Force users collapsed from exhaustion, and Vader caught Luke before his son fell. They stood together in the desert, father and son, as the twin suns set over Tatooine. "Do you think he'll remember us?" Luke asked quietly. "Perhaps," Vader replied. "Or perhaps he'll treat it like any other heroic adventure, something that happened, was dealt with, and moved on from." He paused. "Either way, he changed everything. The Empire is dismantled. You found your path as a Jedi, and I have a chance to be better," Luke finished. "We all do." The galaxy spun on, its countless worlds facing an uncertain but hopeful future. The Emperor sat imprisoned, awaiting trial. Former Imperials and rebels worked together to build something new, and somewhere in the outer rim, construction crews were finishing a statue, a bald figure in a yellow costume and red cape, fist raised, commemorating the hero from beyond who'd saved them all by being exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone who punched evil in the face and asked for nothing in return, except maybe some decent vegetables. The Force moved through all of it, light and dark, finding new balance. And if sometimes, late at night, Jedi Masters felt a strange presence in their meditations, something impossibly strong, impossibly simple, from a dimension reality had briefly touched, they smiled and remembered that power, true power, came not from domination or fear, but from choosing to help others no matter how boring victory became. Saitama would have appreciated the sentiment, though he'd probably have pointed out that being a hero wasn't about philosophy or Force mysticism. It was just about seeing someone in trouble and deciding to help. Sometimes the simplest truths were the most powerful, and sometimes the strongest beings in any universe were those who never sought strength for its own sake.